Good evening. I'd like to open the meeting for Wednesday, November 14th, 2018 at 7 p.m. And are there any emergent items to add to the agenda tonight? Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Your Worship, I would like to add a Bow Valley College CARES grant to the agenda, please.
Okay. Thank you. Any other emergent items? Mr. Thackeray?
The draft and review for seniors housing.
Good question, Councillor Cox. Jen, do you have advice as to where we'll insert them into the agenda?
Yes, Your Worship, under item 7.1.
Okay, 7.1 and 7.2?
You got it, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Corbeil. I should listen to you all the time. Any other items? Then I'm looking for a motion to confirm the... Councillor Corbeil.
I move to confirm the agenda as amended.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. And we have our first delegation, the Wheatland Society of Art Studio and Gallery, the annual report to council. Welcome. And come on up to the microphones. Good evening. Well.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Can they see it back there? Or?
They can, yes.
Oh, okay. Good evening, and thank you for having us here. I probably don't even need the mic. My teacher voice probably just echoes off the back wall, so I apologize if I come across too loud. So as I said, I have done a PowerPoint for you. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but since there are so many amazing things that we've done over the last year, and we have such a collection of pictures, I thought it would be nice if you had a visual representation of that. So you've also got a copy of the report and a copy of the financial report. So I don't really want to stand up here and just kind of read off of it. So I'm just going to highlight a few things, and then if you have any questions, you can ask myself or Jen. So the last year has been, well, a little bit of a roller coaster, but I would be proud to say that the studio is incredibly busy, and we have programming that keeps the studio open pretty much every single day of the week. There is, I'm going to talk fast too because I'm super nervous. Sorry. So I've got a little bit of the regular programming for you. So these are the events that happen every single week. We have mom and tot programs, an after-school program. The teen night got so popular that we had to split it into two. So we have a pre-teen night as well as a teen night that happens on 2 different nights. Our Young at Heart studio, which is our open studio for seniors to come in and do, they do mostly oil and watercolors, but they can do any medium that they'd like. We've also got a lot of partnerships in the community, and I'm really proud that I can work for Golden Hills School Division and tie my 2 jobs, even though they're right across the street from each other. Makes it really nice for me to tie those things in and take the Anchors kids and the Learning Academy kids and the Storefront kids over to the studio every Thursday afternoon for art classes, as well as open studio times every week, family paint nights, and wine and paint nights. So on top of all of that, I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but there's also birthday parties are really big at the art studio, as well as the master series. So a series set up, and I think I've got some nice pictures of that for you. Oh, adaptive programming. I'll go back. So these are the programs that are vital to us as an organization, and what we thank you so much for giving us some funding for, because these are the programs that we keep at $2 or $5. So our teens that come in, our preteens that come in, they pay $2 just basically to help cover the cost of supplies. And our seniors and our adaptive, they come in and they pay $5. And basically, again, just to help cover the cost of supplies. Other than that, we would not be able to run these programs without you, because that's what we're there for, is to get into the community. Or at least that's what I feel very passionate about. We also do a lot of corporate events. The picture on the left-hand side is the international students that came over from China, Japan, Asian country, China. And the one on the other side is we also do a lot of community fundraising opportunities. So that was the Pony Club last year, and we worked in conjunction with Humpty's. They wanted to do some fundraising at the same time. So we do have those that work a lot through the studio as well. Birthday parties I mentioned. And now I get to the workshop. So every Saturday is a different workshop. Thursday evenings also have workshops. And those are really set up for anybody who wants to try a new medium, or they used to paint and they haven't done it for a while. So we bring in some kind of really expensive instructors from Calgary every once in a while who are absolutely amazing. And I love having that opportunity for Strathmore to be able to bring those people in from Calgary and have a studio for them. Doug Swinton from Swinton's in Calgary came out and did an amazing oil painting class. If there's anybody that has ever wanted to try oil paintings, that's who you need to start with, even if you are just beginner. He's amazing. Acrylic class paintings that we do, wire sculptures, as well as Jen is also standing next to me as our glass specialist, so a lot of glass work. Encaustic, so painting with hot wax. Fluid acrylics, I do a lot of fluid acrylic classes right now in private events because they're fun and you don't need a lot of technique. The glass work, as I mentioned before, jewelry classes, printmaking classes. So I'm just trying to give you an overview of everything that's been offered over the last year. We also have a beautiful gallery. If you've ever had a chance to come through, our gallery will have different exhibits that change monthly. So we've had seniors have their own gallery exhibition for a month. We've had local artists, which again, I just had a gentleman contact me the other day who wants to show art, who's from Strathmore. The teens have had their own gallery show. The adaptive programs had their own gallery show. Some of the different high schools have had their own galleries. So it's another really good opportunity for people to come in and see the artwork and purchase some of that. We also have done summer camps for the last 2 summers, and each year they get more and more popular, and those are in a weekly format. It's just some of the partnerships that we have. As I said, I already mentioned Golden Hills School Division. We have a lot of art and business as well, where our members have brought in artwork that we can hang out in the dental office, Valley Medical, primary care. We have the new radio station in town asking us for some artwork, so their new office isn't so echoey. We work together with the Municipal Library, the District Historical Society Lions, and Celebration of Lights, which Jen just came from. And the Adult Day program from Alberta Health Services is also something that Jen works on. So that's some of them. And I think we're almost, and murals, right? So the mural that is in front of our studio, which was one of the first ones that we did, that was done last summer or 2 summers ago. And then this is the new one that was just unveiled about a month ago. Okay, questions? Oh, and members, we're up to about 170 some odd, or what does it say, 107 paid members. That doesn't include our teens, or what?
Our youth membership.
Yeah, our youth memberships aren't included. They don't need to pay to become a member of the Maitland Society of Arts.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Amazing stuff you guys are doing. I'm so impressed. Your galleries that change on a monthly basis, is that getting out to the media? Is that getting put on social media?
It is.
I haven't seen that, and it's something I would love to, advertise for you guys on my Facebook page as well.
The Times has come out many times to do articles on specific galleries that are showing.
Yeah.
Especially when we did the adaptive arts one, that was really special. So they came in and did an interview. This is a Facebook community. And so our Facebook has gone from 7 members when I started with them. And I'm not in charge of it, so I don't take credit for this, but it now has over 540
Fantastic.
some odd followers. Advertising, I would say, is probably our biggest obstacle because it's really expensive. Really expensive. So
I'm just wondering if, when you're advertising your galleries, you're doing it on your own Facebook page?
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering if you're able to get that onto some of the other
Yeah,
larger ones, you know?
for
there's
sure.
The Strathmore ones, because I've never, for some reason, I'm not getting any of this information, but I'm going to
Yeah, I think
see if I can change that.
Lisa tags about 3 different
great.
Facebook groups. She usually has it in our own.
Mm-hmm.
She also puts it into the I Love Strathmore and the Strathmore community.
I'll keep a better eye out
But
and push that, because
Yeah,
that's
and
really
it's-
neat. It's so nice to have a gallery in our own little.
The show thus
Community.
far that has gotten sort of the most traction in terms of advertising was actually the Red Dress Project.
And I
when
went
we
to
did
that
it.
one, yeah.
And I think probably that was the one that we need to start really working on, sort of trying to mirror when we do our marketing.
Right on.
Because it was a special interest sort of piece, we were able to get a fair bit of media coverage, but
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great job, you guys. Thank you.
Councillor Montgomery and then Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank you, ladies, and everybody else from the Society for everything that you do, and I really think that you're an important part of this town, so thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
I just wanted to say that the work that you did on the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women Project has had far-reaching implications for the young woman that did it, and it has spread, and Siksika expressed their gratitude, and they are doing a spring project following your lead. So that's really a high compliment. I also have had many parents and seniors talk to me, and I want to read a comment that was given to me freely. I didn't ask any questions about it. Just
So you
happened
didn't
to
pay for it, is what you're
go.
saying?
I know I didn't pay for it. I just happened to go into her home, and I made a comment on something she had on her wall, and it was something that she had made. And her name is Gail Galusha, and she is a senior resident of this community. And she said, "I was staying at home. I was becoming increasingly isolated, and then I found the Wheatland Art Society. My life is as rich as it's ever been. I look forward to my lessons, my new friends, my fellowship, and I have learned many new skills. And now I have every day of the week to practice these skills where I can look forward to going back. I want to say it's changed my life."
Good.
Gail-
You're going to make me all
Yeah.
weepy here. Gail's
Gail's
amazing.
She's a great example.
Yeah.
FCSS actually gave us a grant about a year ago. And what we did with it was try to sort of start bringing seniors who were in that situation where they couldn't necessarily get out of their homes into the gallery. And that's actually how we met Gail. So she's a really great sort of example of, again, another partnership that we've been able to use to further the gallery.
And for someone, she said she'd never painted in her life, and to see what's hanging in her house and yeah, the engagement. Anyway, I echo my councillors. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's hard to follow that, Councillor Peterson. That was beautiful. I really want to thank you. I am so impressed with the way that you are hitting so many different demographics in our area. People used to say in Strathmore that there was nothing to do, and you have provided them with so many opportunities to be engaged, and not just give them something to do for a minute or for an hour, but for a lifetime. And so I thank you for that. I've looked at your presentation, and I'm just trying to figure out, you're doing so much right now. What is going to be your focus in the next year? How are you going to tailor this, and what is going to be your specialty?
I think that our specialty really is the regular programming. That is where we spend the majority of our time. I mean, I love having the opportunity to have the workshops and bringing people in, but really, we focus a lot on those high-risk programs that we have and bringing them in. The team programs have grown so much, right? We've had to split them into 2 different groups, and we're really trying to do more partnerships within the schools. We've had a couple, where Westmount will walk down and do paintings with us, and so we've had that a couple of times, but I would also like to, I just want to get more people, as many people in there as I can. We're talking about doing a gallery exhibition of just the teen artwork from the schools around Strathmore. So, trying to get them in the doors as well. And I'm hoping that we can, I don't see why we wouldn't, but the birthday parties are huge. And I love seeing kids of all ages come in there and be able to do that. And there's not a lot to do, especially in the wintertime, so you don't have to drive into Calgary. They can come, they can come and see us. So.
And then, Kari, if you wouldn't mind just telling me, your memberships now are sitting at 107 paid members. Do you wish to increase that? And what is the value for membership for the individual?
That has probably been, so right now a membership is $20 for the year. Wow. And what that does is it basically gives you discounts on any class that you want to take. So the workshops will always have 2 price tiers. One for members and one for non-members. So that's really the biggest benefit to being a member, is just the discount in prices. At one point in time, we had only members in the gallery too. That was another kind of perk, that you could have your...
We do now have members-only shows.
Yeah, so now we have a member-only show that rotates probably 3 times a year. So that would be another perk of being a member. And once you become a member, you're on our mailing list. And then Jen sends out MailChimp and let everybody know the classes that are coming up. So that's another kind of in for you as a member.
Okay, so maybe I'll speak to you privately and we'll list all of those things, value for member, and I'll fan that out on my social media.
That would be wonderful.
And just let people in the community know that this is a gem.
Yes, and I was going to ask Mr. Sobel there, do you like our Facebook page? Have you liked it and followed our Facebook page? It would be great, because then you can go into the gallery. Like, Lisa's fantastic at putting all of these pictures up there. And there is a huge, like the red dress exhibit, like she will go in and photograph every gallery and make sure that every gallery is on there. So just if you, like, I feel bad that you've missed them, some of them. So there's some beautiful work in there for you to, did I answer your question? Sorry, Lorraine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Bauer. Congratulations on your success, and we wish you well for the next year. Thank you for your presentation. And also wanted to thank Wheatland Society of Arts for having your location downtown. I think this council and previous councils have been really working hard trying to save the downtown and encourage people, and you've brought a lot of energy and excitement down there and options for people to do. So best wishes for next year.
Thank you, and it works really well for me.
Awesome, yeah, right across the street. Yeah, that's
I have
perfect.
2 jobs, one.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for coming and presenting.
Thank you very much for everything.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to go into committee of the whole.
Your Worship, I move that we go into committee of the whole.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Your Worship, we need to adopt the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to put that down? Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
I move council adopts the council committee of the whole meeting minutes for October 10th, 2018 as presented.
Thank you. And you've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. And thanks, Councillor Sobel. Is there any other unfinished business? Okay, sorry, Jen, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do. Your Worship, we're wondering if we can reorganize the order of the agenda a little bit, as we have a number of staff members here. I have a number of changes, if that's okay. If we can move item 6.6 to the first item we consider, then 6.9 to the second item, and we'll move 6.1 and 6.2 down towards the end. So if we can do 6.6 and 6.9 first, that'd be perfect.
And then 6.1 becomes 6.6 and 6.2 becomes...
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just before we go on, Jen, do we have bylaw number 18-26 coming up first? Is that something
Your Worship, 1826 will move down to 6.6.
Yeah. Okay. But that has to be outside of committee of the whole, that one?
Your Worship, no, everything can be in committee of the whole.
Okay. But isn't it looking for second, third readings on the 18-26?
We are, Your Worship. However, that can wait till the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Councillor Corbeil made her motion? No.
But I move we go into committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. You all heard the motion, all in favor? Put that down, that's the third one. Thank you.
It's not your point to take.
And our first item is 6.6, Transportation Master Plan Update. I'm hoping that's the right one. Good evening and welcome.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you are aware, the town of Strathmore is growing in population and new areas are being developed on an ongoing basis. So we last had a transportation master plan in 2006, and this has been held off mainly because of the Alberta transportation study on rerouting the bypass outside the town to the south. So within the last couple of weeks, we engaged an engineering consultant who can finally update the transportation master plan for us. And it will cover growth over the next 30 years for a population of approximately 30,000 residents. And I would like to introduce to you Alex Ho from ISL Engineering. ISL is our consultant. I am not well versed with matters of transportation engineering, so I'll let him speak to the process of updating this transportation master plan.
Good evening, councillors.
Good evening.
My name is Alex Holm from ISL Engineering. So I'm just here today just to go over what we'll be doing in the transportation master plan. So we've basically just been engaged a couple of weeks ago, and we've just started. So I'll run you through what a transportation master plan is, basically. So a transportation master plan, or TMP, we like to call it, is a plan for evaluation and assessment of the performance of the road network right now and in the future. So the ultimate goal is to provide council and administration to assess the road network in existing 10, 20-year, and 30-year horizons. So to determine the road network in each horizon, we will build a travel demand model and assess the existing network and recommend the future network to accommodate the future annex area and growth and densification in existing town areas. So this information will be helpful to carry out the short and long-term planning and budgeting and determining of off-site levies. So why are we updating the TMP? So as Frida said, it was last completed in 2006, and that TMP no travel demand model was developed, and it was within the previous town boundaries, and it did not account for the Highway 1 bypass. So in our update, we'll develop a long-term travel demand model. It will include all the latest plans and ASPs and planning documents. So ASPs that will account for includes the Wildflower Ranch and Lakewood Meadows, and all documents ASP documents that the town has. We'll also evaluate the impact of the Highway 1 bypass, so we can determine how much traffic will come off of the existing Highway 1 through the town with the bypass when the bypass is built. And also we'll review the road cross sections standards. So the TMP will provide guidance on the future road network, so with a number of lanes and traffic control. So example would be the North Ring Road. The last TMP says it needs to be 6 lanes, so we can relook at that to see if 6 lanes is really needed with the bypass in there. What kind of traffic control, if it's a signal or a stop control. So we also will determine when the bypass will be required. And also we will do a concept plan of the North Ring Road. So North Ring Road will be made of the Wildflower Road to the west, To the north would be Township Road 244, or it's called the North Boundary Road, and then the east would be the East George Freeman Trail. And we will also calculate the order of magnitude cost estimates for updating the roads for the road levies. So this map is basically what I kind of just said, all the items that we'll look at. So the yellow part are the growth areas of the town. And then the Highway 1 bypass is the Highway 1 to the south of the town. And then the blue dashed line is the North Ring Road. So I'm just going to go over the quick timeline of of the TMP. So there will be 3 stages. So stage 1 is right now through January 2019. So we've been collecting traffic counts for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, if you see a car on the side of the road, don't be afraid. He's just collecting traffic counts. So we'll be doing traffic count and developing the existing model. We'll also be doing a stakeholder meeting. So the November 20th will be pushed to mid-January. And then the public open house will be December 6th. And then we also have online engagement in case the public can't come to the open house on the 6th. So some of the stakeholders that we will be engaging is protective services, traffic advisory committee, downtown revitalization committee, Chamber of Commerce, the school board, and Alberta Transportation. So stage 2 will be completed in about early April. So this is the stage where we built the future model of the 10, 20, 30 years, and we'll determine what road will be required and road cross sections and doing our cost estimates at that stage. And then at stage 3 will be the documentation, and it'll be the second open house, and it'll likely be in early May. So that's a quick rundown of what we'll be doing in the TMP update. So any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I don't know much about how transportation plans go, so I appreciate this, but do you also talk about sustainability in transportation? Would a transportation master plan ever address things like how to incorporate autonomous vehicles into community, electric cars?
No, we don't.
That's not in your purview?
That's not in the scope of work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
What
Councillor.
about airports?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about the Highway 1 bypass, and I guess my question deals with how do I put this? The value of whatever you're going to be studying in regards to the bypass. I question the validity of it due to the fact that this is probably not going to be anywhere near to the starting point before another 20, 25 years.
Yeah. So we've had talks with Alberta Transportation, and it's not even in their 20-year horizon. So they don't know when it's going to be built, and they may rely on this document.
And that was the point I was trying to get at. So I'm glad to see that what you're doing has a focus on when it should be done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just wanted to talk about stakeholders. I guess so. Who would be a stakeholder, and how would you go about? Like, what information do you hope to collect from stakeholders?
So stakeholders, we would be getting their specific areas of concerns. We also downtown revitalization group would be, I guess, basically on specific areas that they have concerns on. So basically in the TMP, we don't look at all roads in the town. So we just focus on the major roads. So if they have one that they feel like it's a collector road and the spacing may not be adequate, so we could look at that. So area-specific concerns where they may have for each group.
And then do you talk to like developers, as like to find out, I guess, like, when they might be bringing, like various developments online, so you can kind of plan the, like, the stages or the order that
Yeah.
roads will be built?
So we do have all the ASPs in the town, so those are probably funded by, or those are completed in consultation with developers. So we will have their staging plan and yeah, we'll have their 10, 20-year, 30-year horizons. So, but they're also welcome to come to the open house and provide comments.
Okay.
And also, yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so we would base our findings, and we would probably talk to them too on if for the state in future stakeholders too.
And do you deal strictly with just kind of the physical roads, or are you going to be making recommendations on like some sort of public transit routes or something like that?
Public transit is not part of the scope of work, but we will be raising, so as part of the stakeholder form, or the form that the questionnaire to be completed at the open house, we will have some questions on transit, and those recommendations or comments will be addressed in the future TMP update.
Okay. And I guess, like, further to Councillor Peterson's questions about autonomous cars, do you forecast, 30 years from now that there's going to be more vehicles on the road, or, is there going to, do you kind of try to figure out if there's going to be, more kind of ride sharing, or like, do you try to figure that out?
Thing is, we're basically in this TMP, we are focused on autos only, so we don't do any transit.
No, I don't mean that so much as, I'm
Ride sharing or?
well, I believe, with like autonomous vehicles coming on, you're probably going to see, like, instead of a family having, several vehicles, they might have one, that kind of just boots around and,
No,
picks
we-
them up or whatever.
we don't.
So, like, you might be recommending, that we build, say, a 4-lane highway down the middle of the, the town, but there might not be the, the need for that 30 years from now necessarily. So I'm just wondering if you guys try to forecast what is going to happen that way?
So right now we have a specific scope that we will limit this project to. And based on the feedback that we get from the stakeholders and the public open house, we will incorporate all these comments or concerns or issues that need to be addressed in the future. Because a transportation master plan is actually supposed to be updated every 5 to 7 years. So within 5 to 7 years, we have to reevaluate whatever transportation master plan we will have from ISL that will come out of this project, and we will improve it. So we'll have a chance to address some of those issues in the future.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's 30 years is obviously a long time, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Alex. Good evening, Frida. My question just has to do with stage one. The stage one of your process, you said that you were going to do a count of the different vehicles on the ring roads, but we have an issue right now in Strathmore in that we've just put a brand-new school on one of our outside ring roads, or George Freeman Trail, and we're doing a bridge replacement, which means that the traffic is all being detoured. So will you be going back to do the study on that particular road, or how is that going to influence your data?
So our count program is throughout the town, not just on the North Ring Road. So we do have counts from before the bridge was closed. And then we're going to do counts right now at a few intersections, and we'll adjust. So we have before and after the bridge closure, and we will adjust the counts based on the before bridge closure.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer, and thank you for your presentation. I just have one question for administration on this, and that is, Mr. Thackeray, is this report something that we share with the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board? Is that something that we would automatically be doing as we move forward? Ryan's nodding his head. Thanks. Thank you very much for your report, and we'll look forward to hearing more.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And our next item is operations update. Craig, are you speaking to this?
Yeah, we'll switch ties. Because I'm Ryan and you're James.
PowerPoint? Oh. Right.
Yeah, you're in there.
Oh, okay.
Goodness. Yeah, why is it being like this?
That's why we don't want you to operate equipment.
What are you looking for? Can we just close this and go to the next presentation down? Oh, I hate this thing. I hate this. I know, this is never a proud moment. As I get older, I find that it used to be old staff asking me for help with technology, and now I have to ask younger staff for that same help. It's that great circle of life, yeah.
Jennifer, while we're waiting, I'm wondering if we could move up the turf discussion and to right after this operations one. I think we have some members from La Crosse here, and why put them through all this this torture if we don't have to?
Yes, Your Worship, absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. First off, I want to introduce Charles Lockhart. He's our operations supervisor. He's basically my right-hand person. So without Charles's assistance, we wouldn't be as far ahead as we are. So since July, since I came before you asking for funding and some support, I just wanted to give you an update on what's happened since then, so that you have an idea of where we're at, and I can field some questions. I'm assuming I just click it. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, since that time, we've added some key positions. Obviously, we've added Charles. Mike Brazel is now our maintenance planner and scheduler. Tyler Mack is our public works lead. Melissa Massey is our operations assistant. Everybody knows Donna, and she's our parks lead now. Jaden Mullen is our inventory control clerk, and Chris Stickle is our heavy-duty mechanic. And Chris has been an absolute godsend as far as keeping the vehicles running and keeping them on the road. This is our list of operators and technicians within the operations department. I won't go through all the names, so it'll take me a while. But we have added the additional bodies that you funded, and they are working the Saturday through to Wednesday shifts. Currently, we have 4 of them working that shift, so that's why on weekends we're able to address all the snow issues and get caught up in a lot of work. Moving on. So the council special acquisition, you gave us money to buy a GPS winter maintenance vehicle tracking. We've acquired that. Currently, we have 6 vehicles that have the equipment has been installed on. 2 more coming tomorrow. 2 more will be as soon as the new loader and the new single axle dump arrive, which we're crossing our fingers will be in within the next month or 2. We've also got pricing from BSM to add another 5 more vehicles or pieces of equipment that will help us to monitor the smaller pathway vehicles that clear our pathways. So we'll be able to track them as well as the street sweeper, which we will be definitely needing in the spring because we're already using up lots of pickle mix on the road. The mechanic service vehicle was completed. It has a welder, a generator, it has a whole toolbox, it has a lift. It has come in handy probably more than a dozen times since we've got it on the road, servicing our vehicles and doing maintenance around the town. Other equipment, snow blowers, backpack blowers, steam pressure washer have all been acquired. We're still sourcing a generator and a sump pump to be within the budget, and that will come by the end of this year. That will complete the 2018 purchases. The 2019 purchases will be the traffic accommodation directional boards, which will help us on Highway 1 so we can eliminate the contracting. The industrial bush mower, which will eliminate weed whacking of massive areas and we'll be able to clear a lot faster. And a rototiller to deal with the many beds that we have in town that really needs to be serviced. As I mentioned before, the additional staff have been hired and they're working the weekends as well. Some of our accomplishments to date, there's going to be a lot of parks ones here, so bear with us. We all know about the Community in Blooms. We won the 5 Blooms. Operations will be working with planning and development to address the noted deficiency in the judging report. We replaced the Wheeler Park playground equipment, removed the old pump house on Kinsman Lake, and we'll be replacing that with a handicap accessible dock. The dock is already here. Unfortunately, weather conditions does not permit us to install it. We're actually going to install it when there's actually ice on it, which will make it a little bit easier. We've deployed 10 new multi-bag dog stations. You'll see a little picture of that. So it's got 3 little the bags out there, so that when somebody comes by and decides they want the whole entire roll, at least we'll have dog bag stations out there. We're hoping to have try to replace the current ones with this type of style in the future, and that's what we'll be buying. Donna and her crew, which was a lot of our staff, planted 77 trees. 64 of them are around Strathmore Lakes. We had to get special trees because the soil is not conducive for really growing trees, unfortunately. So that was a lot of research on Donna's part. We've already put up the Christmas lights at the welcome sign on the west, the town hall, and the Kinsman Park in preparation for Christmas, or winter festival, depending on how you want to title it. We've ordered 57 new light displays for the light standards. They're going to go on the 2nd and 3rd Avenue, Lakeside Boulevard. I know, I can see. And when Fortis does us a favor and replace the lights in Kinsman Park, we'll move them over there. We deployed 15 more bear-proof garbage cans, and we'll be addressing the ones that are being sticky with some WD-40 shortly. We relocated one of the disc golf holes to address residents' concerns. We also sent, through our wonderful communications department, a letter to the area, the affected residents, so that they knew what we did, and asked them for any input. So far, we haven't received anything except for positive comments that they were happy that we put the trees up and we moved the hole so that they won't get their garage door damaged and everything else. We rehabbed about 2 to 3 kilometers of pathway in the town. Kinsman and Grand Point Estates are the 2 that come to mind. Okay, keeping on with parks. We repainted the bowl in the skateboard park to reduce the graffiti. I don't think we've had any graffiti since we... Minor graffiti. And in the skateboard park, so that inside the bowl we put a nice color display type of thing. Major cleanup in Grays Park, and we completed the gravel pathway around it. We deployed pathway markers for snow removal program so that when our plows are going through, we won't be taking up the topsoil on the roads and sides. We also deployed the old train station sign, so the heritage sign. It was in Lambert Park. And we've also put up new notification signs on Kinsman and Strathmore Lakes to deal with the water quality and the conditions of going on the water. On to the public works side. Okay, since February of 2018, we have repaired or replaced 365 black carts. We have deployed over 200 large green carts to replace the small ones. We filled up over 175 potholes throughout the town. These are just our crews, that didn't include the contractor. We crack sealed the majority of the major roads in town, and since May 1st, we've done 924 Alberta one-call locates. That's an average of 7.3 per day, which is basically one person since the beginning of the year doing locates. Also with Public Works, we began a storm ditch maintenance program in Orchard Park. We did dust control on gravel roads throughout the town, approximately 6 kilometers. Sidewalk repairs and replacements, we did 51 locations. These are multiple flags. A flag is the little sections of sidewalk. And we ground down 162 locations throughout the town. We also did the multiple color crosswalks, reflectors, RRFB deployments. We replaced the barrier at Center Street and Centennial intersection. You see the little picture there. And since June 1st, we've completed over 350 work orders. These are the manual ones that we've tried to track since we've started that system. We still got a lot of objectives to do by the end of 2018 and also into 2019. Obviously, with the first one, the priority for us is CityWorks software deployment. Internally, it should be operational by December the 15th. Hopefully that will also include the website, but we probably won't roll it out publicly until the new year, just to make sure that we got all the bugs out. Strathmore Lakes, we have the rock wall. We have to deal with some stabilization issues. It is solid, but it does need to be have some concrete filler in there to actually stabilize the rocks. The other thing too is we've looked at the shoreline with the help of my colleague Mike over here. There's some stabilization, there's some erosion issues that we have to deal with around that lake. So we're going to take our infrastructure's advice and how to deal with that so that we can put the proper remediation in there. Trees, we're going to be planting trees beside the 2 welcome signs, one on Highway 1. We would have done it. Unfortunately, the locate did not come in on time, so it missed the window for this fall. We'll do it in the spring. And we'll be planting another 75 to 100 trees throughout the town in the spring. We're also waiting for the arrival of the new loader and the single axle dump. We also want to address the flooding issues, which also infrastructure has helped us out on, giving us some nice advice on the Strathmore Lakes Bend Park. I don't know if there's actually a name for it, but that's, yeah, okay. I guess there's been a flooding issue there for several years, so we've come up with some creative ideas that we're hopefully will address that. We're going to have to talk to EBCOR a bit because we'll have to tie into the storm drains. And then we're also looking forward to a street and traffic sign standardization program in 2019. So that's pretty much what we've done since July.
Just a little bit.
That's it.
Thank you for your presentation. Councillor Cox.
Hi. I just had it's a really quick question. Something that was brought forward to us last council meeting regarding the signs being moved. So good thing you didn't plant trees?
The signs being moved?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Your Worship. The trees that will put the firs, the stands that will put the firs around are the Welcome to Strathmore signs, not the electronic signs.
Thank you.
Okay.
Craig looked confused there, so I had to jump in.
Thank you.
We have a lot of electrical power on those things, though. Okay.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the update. I have a couple questions. They're quick. Are we still painting like crosswalks and stuff now?
No,
Okay.
because the weather conditions,
figured.
it wouldn't.
I figured. I thought that we might get that one up in Strathaven done, but it didn't get done. And then my other one is, I'm sorry if it's in the binder, or the budget binder, but I haven't got there to this point of it yet. The bi-direction, or the directional board that you want to get in 2019, I'm assuming it's in the budget binder. Are we only getting that to water flowers on the Trans-Canada, or what is the purpose of it?
That was the primary purpose, because we were paying almost $1,000 or $800 a week. But they can come in handy every time we do crack sealing, any sort of road work. It just allows us to push the traffic over.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Thanks for that. That's like, it's a long list, and you guys have done some amazing work. And I just want to focus on 2 of those parts of amazing work. One is in regards to citizen communication forums. And over the last 6 months, I've probably, maybe I got a little little ambitious, and but under my personal name, not as a counselor, but personally, I've probably put in 15 of these things anyway, and I just want to tell you that it's so amazing to put one of these things in. Not only is it responded to by email, but the action is taken like very quickly, and I just think you guys should be complimented for responding in the fashion that you do. It's just I've never been more impressed with this department than I am right now. And the other thing, and along with that, I just want to mention too. We've already had a couple of pretty good snowfalls, and I'm amazed. I go out and there's still snow on the streets. The snow has just stopped, and I'll go onto the pathways, and they're cleared. So I don't know what procedure you guys are using, but please don't stop. It's to have the pathways cleaned and have people still be able to be mobile and walking along those pathways when they're clean is a real benefit, and speaks well of our philosophy and our community in regards to transportation and movement of people. So thank you for that as well.
If I could just say it's a team effort. I mean, Charles is working with all the guys all the time, and we're always looking weather forecast. We already know it's going to snow tomorrow night and Friday, so we're preparing for it.
Well, it's interesting you say that. If I could just add one more comment, Your Worship. It's interesting you say that, and I think this is probably more directed to the CAO than anyone else, but that's another thing I'm observing is how all the departments are working so well together. It's obvious from your comments in regards to getting input from engineering. That's the way it's supposed to work. We're trying to do the best job possible, and it does take a team to do that. And that's that's been very obvious from what I've seen anyway. So
Thank you.
Good on you guys.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Craig, for your presentation. I really appreciate that you started your presentation involving the people that you work with. The people are our biggest asset, and you have surrounded yourself with good quality people. I'm so impressed with the operations efficiency that you have now, the plans that you've been coming to us with on how to streamline processes, the way that you're managing work orders, and I know you have lots of other ideas of even making that process even better than it is now. I just want to thank you for helping us be able to showcase our town as you did. Your staff worked tremendously hard during the Communities in Bloom judging, and that won't be forgotten by me because I was such a big part of reaping up the benefits. People have been saying to me that this town looks the best that it has in years, and that's because of the dedication of your crews. So thank you for that. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say I'm very impressed. And oh, yes, I did. Not a really question, but I know you're not one to toot your own horn, but would you be able to, when people say to me, where do my taxes go, Lorraine? Could I just give them a little snippet of some of the things you've just presented? Are we able to put those on the website or something, just to let people know how hard you're working?
I defer that question to the communication side, so it's up to you guys.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Worship. Craig, I just wanted to say thank you to you and your staff for doing a bang-up job this past year, and thank you very much for the report. And it's very I think we all can agree that the professionalism of your staff and of your department has really been exemplary, and I really look forward to seeing 57 Christmas decorations all over town in the coming years. So thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just echo everyone. You guys have done a great job. You and your staff have thought outside the box. You've streamlined things. You've made really good changes, and the evidence is how we did this year in Communities in Bloom judging. Next year we'll go for 7 blooms if there's no such thing. But anyway, thanks for all your work. You and your staff have been great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
And our next item that we've moved up is the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Center, the turf options, page 36 of your program.
Right. All right. While we figure out our technology, I just wanted to say that the report you got, unfortunately didn't make it into the package, so you'll have it there, and we'll go through it. And for some reason, it printed really weird, so you gotta flip it. Different. I don't know. Printer just went a little crazy today. So Marcy and I are here to talk to you this evening about our turf options for the two playing surfaces at the sports center. Before we jump into turf, I just have a really quick update on the construction. The concrete moisture in the floor under the gymnasium is less than 1% away from where it needs to be, so we should be installing flooring within the next couple weeks. And the track going down, the flooring going down on the track is looking really, really great, and it should be up and ready in a couple weeks as well. So we're seeing lots of progress, and we're hoping to get opened in very short time. And Marcy actually moved her office this week. So she's over there just getting set up, and we'll have some public office hours in the near future. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcy, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about turf. Great. Thank you.
All right, so when a vision was first created for the fields at the sports center, we had, or I shouldn't say we, I wasn't employed at that time, but administration had consulted the two anticipated main user groups of the facility at that time, which is the local soccer organization and the lacrosse association. Administration did an assessment of both of their needs, and both had similar needs, which made the plans for the field quite simple at that time. Having, two similar needs, it was easy to go forward with a plan. However, in recent discussions with the soccer organization, their needs have changed, shifted a little, so that has caused us to come back and reevaluate plans for both fields. So lacrosse, their requirements, they need a short carpet-style turf, really low pile, so that the ball will bounce. They can't play on a high pile, longer style turf. They also require boards in order to carry out games. Whereas the soccer association is moving towards just kind of an industry trend, 7-on-7. They're going more in the direction of a boardless game and a longer style turf that mimics outdoor play. So you can see very conflicting needs. So we've talked to both the lacrosse association as well as the soccer association. We have outlined their needs. So lacrosse is looking for, from January to June, around 10 to 18 hours a week. And the soccer association is looking from September to April for about 27 to 36 hours a week.
Great. So that was, the original plan, as everyone knows, on the larger surface, which was the, now I'm going to remember my directions, northeast corner of the facility, was a boarded system with netting and that short turf for lacrosse. It can also be used for soccer, but it had the boards. And then we had a futsal field on the south side of that piece that was planned to be unboarded, a smaller field with maybe longer piled turf. And so that's the original plan, and that's one of the options we can go forward with. So that option, I just want to skip this slide. We'll come back to that. Is obviously more expensive because of the more equipment that we'd need to install. It would include the boards around the large field, netting around both fields, as well as the two turf options. The other thing to note, I think, about this one is two things. the look, the short carpet-style turf is typically glued down to the facility or to the floor, which at this time we can't install due to the concrete moisture in the floor. We'd probably be looking at an installation in January at the earliest, later in the year, in a worst-case scenario. It also gives less flexibility to that space with boards and turf. This option is also currently not fully funded in our budget, as we had talked with council previously about finding other sources of funding for the boards and the netting for this one field. So Mark, who's still on vacation, lucky him, and Marcy have put a lot of effort into coming up with some alternative options. And we have an option too we'd like council to consider this evening. And Marcy can kind of walk you through with their thought process.
All right, so this option includes the larger field at the sports center would be turfed, a longer style turf, and this option would be non-boarded, so it would be an open field. It would require drop netting around the entire field. And at this point, we're considering leaving the smaller field area just concrete at this point until we can evaluate usage trend on the larger field to see what would be best suited for that space. So we would leave it concrete until we had evaluated and decided what would be best for that space. And potentially in the future, that could include turf or a multi-sport flooring, just depending on what the needs were.
One of the reasons we're proposing leaving it concrete mainly is because that piece of concrete is not curing at a rate similar to any other in the facility. It was the last piece of concrete we poured. So it's going to be another few months, potentially 3+, before we can even put flooring down. So it gives us a natural opportunity to evaluate our first few months of operating, see where our need is, and maybe a sport flooring is more conducive to the needs of our community, or a turf, or something other. This option, the turf that we're proposing, is actually a removable portable system that they have in Brooks. It's a rolled turf that gets laid out, and it's lined just for the playing surface, and then using a forklift and an attachment, it can be removed and stored, and so the floor can go back to concrete for events like trade shows, ceremonies. We were actually on site today with our MP, Mr. Shields, and we were talking about what a great space it would be for the Remembrance Day ceremony to grow that. And so a removable product gives us a lot more usability and flexibility. So looking at the two options, administration is recommending at this time option number 2, and we have a few reasons. The first reason is we can install it immediately because we don't have to wait for the concrete cure to put in a removable product. We can place an order and have it installed starting in December, which makes us the facility usable in the new year. It provides more diverse usage. We've reached out to some other sport organizations, including local football, rugby, baseball, softball, and even ultimate frisbee in Calgary, and their needs would be more conducive to an open style field with no boards, which is a traditional kind of field sport atmosphere. It also provides more flexibility, as I mentioned, for the facility, being able to remove the turf for events, going onto the concrete for those other events, and that's going to reduce the risk of damage to the floor when we put tables and chairs or vehicles and booths set up for those auxiliary events. It's a lower cost. The boards, without putting boards, we will save between $135,000 to $155,000 at this point. We believe that this business model is going to align us with a more profitable building. It has more expected usage. It has a more diverse usage. We're expecting larger numbers from soccer with a facility like this, and it brings in more other season users to our business model. It also gives us that delay in installing the second smaller field and really find something that we know we're going to use and make a more informed decision based on the usage after a few months. So we believe that this recommendation aligns with the strategic plans of council. It involves a wide variety of sport and recreation users, and we would invite everybody to still utilize the facility. We believe that while lacrosse may not be able to play games here, it still functions for some training and off-season opportunities for them while the ice is still in at the family center. The non-permanent turf also gives us flexibility in the future as our community grows and trends change. If down the road we see a need for another boarded facility, that's still an option. It doesn't limit that option down the road if that's a desire and more capital is freed up for that installation. We also feel like this is a successful way for us to get to our goal of becoming of reaching closer to a break-even or a low subsidy building. Mark and I have discussed our vision for the building, and we'd like to see it in 5 years become less than 30% subsidy on the tax dollars, and we believe this model is going to get us there the quickest and most efficient way. So we're open to any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Councillor Peterson.
I really appreciate the work you've gone to and the depth that you've presented with it to us. Pickleball, I know that, is it only for the gymnasium, or could you use it on the concrete surface on the small field? Because I understand that that there are many Calgary area
They've already
teams.
contacted Marcy numerous
Yes.
It is
times.
it's a growing sport. Right now, there's only inserts for the poles in the gymnasium. Having said that, I don't know, it's a possibility in drilling holes, and if that's the direction that...
Or portable nets. If they wanted to do like a competition or a tournament, we could do taped lines and portable nets on concrete.
So we do have capacity to do that. They just did a spot on I think it was CTV about how there is no room in the city and how they're looking actively.
Yeah, and it's the fastest growing recreational
In North
activity
America.
for the 55 plus category, which is our fastest growing demographic. It's popular and only going to become more so.
Great for daytime usage too, when we anticipate the facility being open more, kids are in school. So we see them as a potential large user during the day.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Wow. I think that in the year and however long I've been here, I don't think anyone's ever brought us a lower option. So, wow, and great job. I think great usage of going the extra mile to get us those people to come in, and yeah, wow, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. May I ask lacrosse?
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate. We do have some members from lacrosse here, and since you're in the audience and this impacts you as well, we'd like to hear some input, if we could, from you. So, Councillor Corbeil, if you have a question for Jonathan.
I do. Would the longer turf work for practices?
No.
So.
Basically, the option presented, option number 2, would take lacrosse out of the picture pretty much completely. And goes against all of our goals that we've just set as a new board to expand lacrosse in Strathmore by the 20%
Could that smaller the smaller field you had mentioned is going to be left cement?
The biggest problem, Your Worship, is the boards.
Right.
Without being able to use the boards, we can't do games. If we can't do games, then it just takes us from possibly our winter lacrosse could be run out of there, which is our free program that we run through January through the end of February, just to get more people out to play. We've been doing it at Trinity School for the last few years with a little bit of a donation to them for using their floor. And it's made do. It would be not any better than that if it didn't have floors.
Sorry, I guess my question is that smaller field that we're leaving cement for a while, that could become a lacrosse area if there were boards and But it would mean the permanent turf would have to be put on that?
It would depend on the size of the futsal court. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
so-
the dimensions are, if it would be big enough for a regulation game.
It's too small for a regulation game. It's
Okay.
just a little bit larger than a gymnasium. It could be, but it could be used, it could be boarded and turfed for a smaller playing surface, but it would not be game appropriate.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what soccer's presenting. The numbers I gave for our usage is pretty accurate based on last season and a little bit of our plans for growth this year, including the field house. We've been limited to, starting late in the season compared to all the other Calgary teams, because we don't have floor surface to practice on until sometime in April when the ice is removed from the arena. And so this year, we were hoping for an earlier start because of field house. We were hoping for expanding to a third floor for a tournament, which would take us from 18 teams to 24 teams this year to start off for our tournament at the beginning of June. And last season, we had 13 teams, which made up about 235 players. And we're expecting bigger growth this year because of additional players from Strathmore as well, since they've been moved into our zone as per the Calgary District Lacrosse Association. So we're hoping to be up around 275, give or take this year, 250 to 275, depending on what actually comes from Strathmore, and which would put us somewhere in around 14 to 16 teams. So the additional floor time would allow more practices earlier in the season, and let us catch up with the rest of the Calgary crew, and then also just give us more options for games throughout the season.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Corbeil, did you want to add?
I do. I just have one more comment. And like, while I acknowledge the fact that we need to rent this facility, I would be kind of disappointed if we are reaching out to non-community groups first, like Calgary Frisbee, when it's our citizens kind of paying tax dollars. It's a catch-22, I get it, but I would like our community groups to be able to use the facility first.
And if I could follow on that, Tracy, while we have you here, I'm confused because I was in on the meetings from the start. I'd always envisioned, I thought lacrosse was always a part of it. But now I'm getting the sense that it's not big enough for lacrosse, and I was always under the impression that it was big enough for their field. All they were missing was boarding. Is that not the case?
No, you're correct. The north side field would be large enough for a box lacrosse with
Okay.
boards. The south field, which is the futsal field
Right.
that has really high moisture content, would not be big enough.
Okay.
So we're talking about the two different fields.
So
Yeah.
the only thing that's stopping lacrosse from being in there is the turf and having
Cost.
boards.
Boards.
The
Yeah.
boards.
If I may, Your
Yeah.
Worship, we could even run on concrete. Boards is the biggest part.
Okay.
We can do turf or concrete. We can't do grass type like turf just because we don't wear cleats and the ball wouldn't bounce the same. And we've apparently they've had issues down the left bridge with lacrosse on a field like that.
Okay.
So concrete or carpet style turf is what we play on. The biggest showstopper for us would be boards.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peterson?
I think people at the other end of the table were.
Oh,
Okay, no worries.
Worries.
So just while we're on this topic, very clearly the issue is one of cost and the cost of the boards and it is one of funding. And when we initially were working on the concept of the field house, both Mayor Fuel and myself were really, really keen on making sure that lacrosse had a space and with the $2 million in grant funding now that the town runs on our existing facilities, I'm in the ballpark, I'm assuming, and looking at future forecasts for this, the funding became a huge issue. And it is our understanding that we couldn't get commitment from and I don't know if we got it from either organization, not from soccer or from lacrosse, into the future about how we could minimize that risk to our community into the future. So I don't know if you come with any ideas or
I wish I had a bag full of money to bring to support this. Unfortunately, we are a nonprofit organization as well, and we don't run a big bank account at the end of the year. Any money that's in there now is used to start paying our fees to all the various organizations we have to start paying. With that said, we have talked about it a bit at the board level, and we are finally getting very close to having our casino to raise additional funds. And there would be consideration, that's the main reason we started looking at a casino was, what can we do to make this more worthwhile? I have asked the question a number of times to Mark, just to ask, if we did come to the table with something, what kind of consideration do we get for it as in return?
Or what would a 10-year agreement look like, or a 5-year agreement look like, to meet this goal that our recreation department, has put before us, that this is what we need to run at a 30% grant funding deficit at the end of 5 years. What would that look like? What could you bring to the table? Those are questions that I would very much like to see, in some real dollar amounts. And we just had a community-based organization come before us a couple months ago asking for funding, that because of the situation we find ourselves in, that we didn't give them. But it was interesting to see that in 2 months, a very small organization had raised $32,000 in a very small amount of time. So one thing I know about being a teacher is that when you have numbers of 200 plus young people, you have a lot of capacity to raise a good deal of money in a short amount of time. And so that is something I would be interested in looking at into the future.
And we are looking for new opportunities within the club as well, just because we do see the need for it from our side. Our biggest problem is our season is very short.
I understand that.
And fast-paced, so getting the commitment outside of the lacrosse season is tough to bring those people back into the fold. And during the season, everybody's like, no, we're too busy. So we got a bit of a...
Well, Mr. Peters, if there's anything that this council can do to assist in moving that agenda forward, and if you do the same thing with lacrosse that you've done with cadets in our community, I know you can make miracles happen. And I really appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Sobel, and then Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you. Couple questions I have. First of all, is there, so if we go with option 2, and we have a soccer field in the large field, is there some suggestion that soccer would move in there in January when it's ready and finish their season?
Yes, Councillor Sobel.
That's till April.
Till April, they're interested in using the facility for the last part of their season.
Thank you.
One of our challenges is they need a commitment because they have to book other spaces if we're not going to be able to meet that.
Yeah.
Same with lacrosse. I know that they're looking to start booking January.
Yeah. All right. And I don't want to direct this entirely at Mr. Peters, but I mean, the fact remains that one of the requirements for his organization is boards. And I saw this somewhere, $200,000 hit.
135.
135 to 155.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah. Okay, 135 to 155. So, and the other interesting part about option 2 is it's temporary. In effect, it's temporary. Things can be switched. We're not gluing down turf, and we're not putting up boards that have to be taken off. So there's still a way to readjust this if we have to in the future if need be. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. Do we know what size lacrosse field has to be? What's the minimum for? Does anybody know that?
It's the same as the regulation.
180 by 80.
It's 180. But that 140 field, the smaller one, if I understand that correctly, if it did have boards, do we have a price for the small?
It wouldn't be big enough. We don't have a price for boards on the smaller fields, but it would be
Probably 100 grand.
roughly, yeah.
I'm just
But it
wondering,
wouldn't be big enough for regulation lacrosse. Yeah.
well, I wonder if I could ask
So-
John, would that be any good to you at all, Jonathan?
No, no, sir, I don't believe it would be. It's just too small of a field.
Yeah.
It would support our youngest players, our mini types maybe, but they play half court at this point anyway, so. Anybody else above that is using the full floor and it would have to be regulation size.
Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Sobo, we'd also have to look if it's even possible to install boards over there because that field is under the or within the track. I'm not sure. We'd have to get someone to look at
Okay.
it. So,
All right.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying we never looked at it. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Marcy, for your report. The one thing I have been extremely aware of during this entire process since becoming elected is that the town and the stakeholders, Wheatland County and Golden Hills School Division, have been extremely fiscally responsible in preparing and planning this building for our users. And there were many different agreements that were set out ahead of time, conversations that it had to include people within this town, our tax base, in this venture. I'm torn because my loyalties have always been lacrosse. I helped to start lacrosse in this town, and so I'm sad to hear that the direction that we're seeming to go may not include a very valuable resource within our community. That being said, is there the number one thing that has so impressed me, Tracy, is that throughout this whole process, you've been able to evolve and reshape yourself. And do you see yourself, if we do go this direction with soccer, being able to include lacrosse later on in the decision?
Absolutely. I think one of the benefits of the removable turf option is it gives us really good flexibility. One of the challenges we had really early on in this project is things happened really quickly. Councillors who were on council at that time remember we made some decisions and jumped on the project really quickly, which was great. But the downside was that we didn't take maybe as much time as we should have for public consultations and done some of the work that Councillor Peterson has been talking about. And so, unfortunately, both us and the users are kind of playing catch up in that area, and it's not really anyone's fault. It was just the process that we had to go to get in line with Alberta education. And so some of these things in a different realm may have been sorted out before we went down the construction path, but we are here now. And so I think we want to find an option that doesn't tie our hands to any really one thing. This is a really unique facility for Strathmore, and it's going to take us a while to figure out how people want to use it and where the best needs are, and that's why the removable product without the permanent boards gives us as much flexibility as possible with options in the future to add those pieces and change it up as we go.
And are all of the turf options with lacrosse, do they all have to be glued down?
We haven't yet to find a product that we don't have to glue down. The most flexible would be to put it on cement, but then soccer won't play on cement. Or
If I could follow up.
And what's the
sorry.
turnaround time between if we were to put turf, take it off, and then put boards up, or the boards are permanent?
To make the boards safe for users, especially in a contact style sport, they have to be attached to the
And
ground.
soccer can play with the boards?
They can play with the boards. They're moving away from boards in soccer. We actually reached out to the city of Calgary, and they're starting the process to remove boards from all of their soccer fields. So it's a different trend in their sport, and so I think within a couple years, if we went with option one and put boards up, we would my prediction, this is just a personal opinion, is that soccer will be knocking on the door asking for a new facility because this one no longer meets their league needs.
Okay, and then my last question is, how many registrations do you currently have for lacrosse? And then do we have a soccer representative to just allow me to know how many kids do we currently have playing soccer?
So soccer wasn't able to make it, so we don't have that answer, but John can maybe answer his.
For lacrosse, we're currently at 235 players.
If I remember correctly, my last discussion with soccer, which was a while ago, they were at like 800 plus. But that was, I believe, based on outdoor soccer, and so it may differ. But we can get that number for you.
The number that I had was much, much lower than that.
Yeah. Okay.
I stand to be corrected.
And it definitely could have been their
Less than
outdoor numbers, but I can get that number for you.
And then Denise has about 300, so in her program.
Has soccer come with an amount that they are willing to bring to the table for the turf or any of their other, the netting or any of the other
So they have
equipment?
they have soccer nets that they're interested in donating to the facility that are new. In terms of cash, they do have some money. I don't have a dollar value, but their challenge is it's casino money, and there's some really sticky rules around casino dollars. And the toughest rule is they can't give casino dollars to a municipality, and so they would have to purchase something on our behalf and then donate it to the facility. It's a complicated system, but we're working with them to help them sort that out.
So we don't have to make a decision on this in the next 2 weeks, do we?
Yeah, we do.
It's up to council, their timeline, but we would prefer a decision.
Mr. Thackeray.
If I may, one of the critical, I've had experience commissioning a field house in a previous life, and one of the lessons learned was that we really wish we would given ourselves more flexibility so we can welcome more users, whether they be local or trade shows or other users. Every hour that field house is used is an hour in the plus. So for us to make decisions without knowing what we don't know, I think it's really to lacrosse, soccer, trade groups. It's in everybody's interest that we have the most flexibility we can work into the program model, because what we're looking at is kind of a hybrid entrepreneurial recreation model for that facility. And the more users that we can program into that space, the more we can drive down the subsidy cost for that facility. And right now, because of the unknowns, it's been super great. We've got the guys from lacrosse here. They want to help. Soccer wants to help. But the capital outlay is $400,000 or $500,000, and we still don't know exactly what the user is going to be. So I really support the staff, and I urge council to take a measured approach right now, and let's take next year as our pilot year to figure out where we need to invest some money. And by that time, hopefully the other groups have an opportunity to put their best foot forward, and we have some good evidence-based data to make some more informed decisions. Because right now, I think if we went just with glue down, I don't think we're in a position to do that. Not all the floor is actually cured right now, and the cost is significant. And so I think it's a good strategic move right now for council to consider these recommendations. And we totally want to support and welcome, whether it's lacrosse or soccer or pickleball. They're all valuable users. We just don't know what the mix is going to be like. And if we put out a big capital outlay right now and we get it wrong, we're going to be eating a lot of crow in the six figures, and that's not in our interests. Thank you.
Thank you. And it sounds to me like it's the fact that the boards have to be permanently installed into the cement that's the real holding, and the fact that we don't have boards. So I guess I'm looking to you just to find out if we can still accommodate lacrosse at the arena for what their needs are. Because it sounds like this isn't going to work that easily, but we are going to keep it flexible as far as turf that can be rolled up. But as far as permanent boards, I'm not sure how we're going to make it happen in this facility. So
to answer your first question, Mr. Mayor, we can definitely still accommodate lacrosse in the facility or in the family center facility as we have been in the past. And we we look to work with all of our users to find ways to better meet their needs across the board. One of the things that you're going to be seeing in the very short, near future is our booking policy for the facility, and it's really going to address Councillor Corbeil's concerns about local versus non-local users. One of the things we do in all our rec facilities, we set priority bookings, and it helps us set expectations with our users. And local youth sport is always our top priority in booking. They always get first dibs on usage, and then I think it goes. You'll see it, but it prioritizes youth, adults, local schools, and then non-local youth, adults, etc. And so while we're open to non-local users, they definitely don't get priority, nor will they take space away from our local users. I know it's not exactly what you meant, but it's a piece.
Do you know what your time frame is to get the turf if you order it? How long it's before it's here and able to use?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but.
Okay, and then just before I finish and turn to Councillor Corbeil, I just got an email from soccer, and I'll just forward it on to you. They're wondering about their turf that they're able to supply, but it sounds like it's not exactly what we're looking for, because.
Yeah, back when we first started this project in 2015, soccer had this brand new turf that they had purchased from I think Red Deer. It was in great shape. Unfortunately, that turf is sat in storage for 3 years. It no longer comes with a warranty, and we're really apprehensive about putting a non-warranted product into our facility. We'd be responsible for all issues, and that can get really costly. And so
I'll just forward this to you to talk to Mark then, and
sure.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it not too late to start working with the players in the game, or the user groups, and maybe see where we can go? And the only thing that I have to, another comment that I have is, in kind of seeing how this year plays out, we won't know what lacrosse would use because it eliminates them. So in the end, we, say it's busy with all these other things. They are kind of getting the boot because we don't know what we don't know.
I guess that's the point. We don't know what we don't know, whether it's lacrosse or soccer. And so at this point, short of putting in a capital investment, it's council's discretion. That it's harder, it ties our hands to.
I think it's a very good point. I think we're going to have that concern regardless of the option we go forward with, which is why this is a really hard place to be. If we go with option 2, we do eliminate a majority of lacrosse's usage in the facility. If we go with option 1, we'll eliminate some of soccer's usability in the facility as well. And so there's no answer that's going to meet everybody's needs at this point, unfortunately.
But what I was meaning, though, I'd still like to entertain, addressing those user groups that we should have done in the beginning and go forward from there.
Because they're still ample.
Absolutely, and we will actively engage all of our user groups, ones we've identified and maybe ones that may surface throughout the year.
May I, please?
Yes, Jonathan.
We have started that recently, Marcy and Mark, and look, this is an impossible task, so it's nothing towards Marcy and Mark on this whole process. We have had a number of meetings in the past month since I've taken over as president for the board, and we've gone back and forth and through all the notes we had from previous meetings, trying to figure out what the history was and where the meetings were and who went to them, and there's a lot of confusion on who was where and when, so we basically said, okay, let's start and meet again. And just 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, we had Mark from soccer as well in a meeting, and seeing this option as the option being favorited for going forward is extremely disappointing from our point of view. We talked to Mark at the end of it, and yes, there's one center in Calgary that does a boardless soccer center. The Calgary Soccer Center just changed all their boards so there's more viewing class. So they're not getting rid of boards, so we don't understand where this is all coming from. And even Mark said at the end of it that they can use a boarded system. They just mark off a foot around the boards where if the ball goes in there, it's out. Because the biggest reason for it was they don't want players using the boards to bounce.
But this option two would allow us to roll up that turf and still allow lacrosse in there. The only thing missing would be to get the boards attached to the cement floor. So you would need holes for the board attachments, and then I would imagine covers on the holes when you put the boards away. So if we choose option two, it does allow lacrosse to have a window of opportunity to join that sports center. Oh, my plane's here again.
So the system of boards that we're looking at, because you've always looked at a removable board system, it's called the Dasher board system, and what it is it lays instead of holes in the ground like the traditional kind of volleyball, badminton net holes, it's a strip of connector that goes around the whole perimeter of the boards, and then the board's attached to that. So it's about 2.5 inches plastic wide strip that goes all the way around, and then the board system attaches to that, which is attached to the concrete. So that piece would always be on there as like a small lip. So we've always looked at a removable, flexible board system.
And can you stay in touch with lacrosse as we move forward? You're looking for an option that you think council would, or you're looking for us to support one or not? One or two?
Absolutely. And part of our plan for our first year of operating this new facility is to stay actively engaged with all of our users, and help us come up with the best recreation model for all of our facilities, how lacrosse in the sports center could impact the family center, vice versa, and everything in between. So it's definitely our goal is to work closely with all of our users.
So option two, Jonathan and your other gentleman, sorry, from lacrosse, it would give you the window of opportunity to join in if we can find the boards that will work like she's saying. So maybe you can stay in touch?
For sure, we will. We're here. We wanted, that's the only way lacrosse grows in Strathmore.
Yeah.
If we get to the family center.
And in the meantime, it sounds like the family center will work for now, and then we can hopefully find a way to get you.
Change anything,
Yeah.
Your Worship, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
We're not planning on reducing our usage at the family center. We're planning on increasing lacrosse.
Okay, hopefully this option two will allow that for you in the near future anyway. Jan, I just have a procedural question for you. We're in committee of the whole with no voting, so are you allowed to do do we rise and report to vote on one of these options? Okay, thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Just a question, would we do that imminently, or would we wait to another meeting?
Your worship, ideally, you would wait till the next council meeting to do that?
I thought that were your orders to us before.
And next week's council meeting is acceptable for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And your worship, I just in hearing Councillor Corbeil's concerns, I texted Calgary Soccer, asked the question, is Calgary Soccer imminently moving to boardless indoor fields? They said Tier 1 and some Tier 2 teams now play futsal boardless, but definitely not a full CMSA shift. The fields themselves have boards. The size is smaller for futsal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an imminent issue.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation, and I guess this will come forward at the next November 21st meeting for a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to lacrosse for your input too. Hopefully we can find some common ground where you folks can be accommodated too. I think option two will give you that open door though. Which moves us on to 6.2 council remuneration policy, page 15.
Your worship, actually, we're moving on to item 6.3.
Of course we are. Page 24, what else is new tonight? Page 24, Pathway Public Washrooms, request for decision. And welcome, Ethan.
Good evening. Apparently it's not fully showing, but okay, so I am here tonight in response to a inquiry that came October 3rd about putting public washrooms along our pathways. What was asked to look at was specifically Thomas Drive, Gray Park, and the downtown region. When we went to look at this, we wanted to come up with a way to basically show where we have coverage of washrooms already and where there were places that could use more. When we did that, we kind of went through the public spaces throughout town, specifically the Civic Center, the Family Center, the Field House, and then our two public washrooms in the downtown Kinsman area. And we determined that there's approximately about a 500-meter zone where we feel that somebody would walk to use that washroom if they knew it existed. There's also the option, which might not be as desirable, but there is gas stations throughout town that have washrooms that could be used. So we put those down to a 200-meter zone that would more be of a as needed, have to use a washroom, I'll go to the gas station sort of deal. So as we went through that, we kind of came up with 3 areas throughout town where it made sense that these could go. The first one would be along Thomas Drive, which was a suggested space. And we kind of suggested about the intersection of Centennial Drive. And this is also where there is a future bridge connection planned in our overall pathways plan. A second location was along Wheatland Trail, where the pathway on the south side of our storm pond currently is, kind of directly across from the golf course. And then the third location would be on the north side of Strathmore Lakes. These are generally more in the public areas of town, not in neighborhoods. We kind of felt that people within the neighborhoods would walk within their neighborhoods and be close to their residents anyways. So, as we were going through this and how we included gas stations in our plan is there's actually an app out there that's from the Crohn's and Colitis Society called Go Here. And it lists every public washroom that is available, and basically anybody can put their washroom, any business that says that their washroom is available. So the only one that in town that is listed is the Husky.
Sorry, Councillor Sobel said, I gotta get this app.
So what we found is currently in town, this is not a very useful app. So another suggestion within the report is, regardless of what we do moving forward, is that the town facilities could be noted on this app. So if we do want to put a form of a washroom along the pathways, the most economical version would be an outhouse. We don't want to put just an outhouse and have this blue pylon beside a pathway, so beautifying it to a point where there's a concrete pad, there's a fence around it, and then possibly trees. We did talk to Protective Services and the potential for vandalism with these things. They suggest we would go more the chain link route with slats in it for privacy rather than a wood fence. It is slightly more expensive for what we found, but overall it's very similar in its end use. So offer that to you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ethan. Councillor Montgomery and then Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say, like, I'm actually like blown away by this, like the effort you guys went to, and like I'm really impressed. And so this was me that actually put this forward based on a question from a citizen.
Was it a senior?
I believe it was somebody of advanced age. So.
Easy on the senior jokes. It was me.
Bob asked me to ask you guys. All right, sorry, Councillor Silver. So yeah, and you know, like, well, it's obviously not a cheap thing to do, but it's something that'll last quite a long time. So it's and it's something that's probably needed, I would say. So so yeah, first of all, just thank you very much for your work on this, and yeah, I hope that we could find some sort of a solution that will work for people.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ethan, for presenting us with this report. I did a little bit of research, and Edmonton initiated a similar project alongside its Downtown Business Association earlier last year from June to October. They put 11 portable public washrooms alongside pathways in the Edmonton River Valley. And they found that temporary washrooms get treated like temporary washrooms. And unfortunately, it's not typically in the manner that we would like to see. And so I would like to, rather than support this portable washroom program, I went to a sustainability conference when I was first, last year in the fall, and there was a type of washroom that was a solar self-contained unit that was made just east of Standard, I believe. And I would be more inclined to support something that is a standalone building type, a more permanent structure that cannot be vandalized or tipped over or in those, treated unfavorably, and wouldn't smell to the degree that this type of enclosure could possibly. But I would consider a pilot project, that being all said, of this type of program with one in town and then just seeing how it works. Thank you.
If I may.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Ethan.
So
Thank you.
graffiti is obviously something we can't get away from. It's probably going to happen regardless of where we put these things. We can secure them so they don't get tipped over. That's part of why we would put it down a concrete pad. And then the cleaning, it is suggested weekly at most, or I mean at least, if not more frequently than that. But if you do have information on the building that you're talking about from East to Standard, by all means, we'd be happy to look into that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your research, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. Are we talking about putting 3 in, or are you asking us to make a decision on a 1 start?
We found that there was 3 areas that would be suitable, whether we do 1 or all 3. That is.
And the only thing that I'm not seeing is I guess from your thing, do we have any idea which paths or which section out of those 3 are most utilized? Like,
At this moment, no, but we
Okay.
could look into that.
I don't know how you would, but just thought process. The other thing is, would they be where would they be situated along the path? Would they be would the pad be touching the path?
The idea would be close to the path. Like, we don't want it to be like, for example, the one at Thomas Drive and Centennial Drive. There's currently some trees in that area. We probably suggest putting it near the trees or even adjacent to the trees, slightly off the path. We don't want it to be an eyesore to anybody, so keeping it.
So I guess the path runs north-south. It would sit off to the east. Would there be like a paved little path to
If it wasn't,
so that it could be
if
snow
it wasn't
cleared?
adjacent, we could
I
make
see.
up the difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson. Thank you. No other questions? Oh, Ryan, did you have a comment?
Your Worship, first I do want to thank, I absolutely love my staff. I am blessed beyond all directors in terms of the level that that staff respond to inquiries. There's no need to make a decision on this matter tonight. We do have the costs, and council sort of has an idea what the program would look like. We can simply, that can be a matter that we'll discuss at budget time in 2 weeks if council sort of after looking at all the capital programs wants to go with this direction. We can add it into the capital budget, or if council's more looking for a more permanent solution, that would probably be a 2020 capital program. So we don't need a decision tonight. This was, in response to the inquiry, and then we can see where council's at for the budget in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Ryan, and Ethan, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for all your work you've done on this as well. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I'm either going to ask Councillor Corbeil or Jen what our next item is. So I've given up. Are we urban beekeeping?
Yes, Your
Thank
Worship.
you. God bless you. So item 6.4, request for decision, urban beekeeping, page 32. Mr. Proctor, welcome back.
Good evening, everybody. So I do have a presentation here. There we go, that's it. Yeah. Thanks.
Your Worship, while Chuck's, point of privilege?
Yes, Councillor Sobel.
While Chuck's getting ready here, can we take a 5-minute break?
Sorry.
Yes, that would be
Recess.
fine. Thank you.
That's good, it gives me time to prepare as well.
Please remember every single day except for one and they started in September and they
Okay, I'll call the committee of the whole meeting back to session, and we have the urban bee bylaw and regulation update from Ms. Chuck. Welcome.
So good
Welcome.
evening, everybody, again. Just want to say that it's been a privilege working on this project. I saw this one coming through, and I asked Ryan to be a part of it, and he let me do it. I'm very happy to be involved. So for tonight, I've just got 5 brief chapters of this presentation, a brief recap of last time, some proposed regulations, a sample beekeeping complaint scenario from Calgary, why a responsible animal control bylaw, and conclusion and recommendation. I'll try to be brief. So last month at the October Committee of the Whole, there was a presentation about beekeeping in town and what the rules should be for these folks who want to have beehives on their property in Strathmore. Our kind of recommendation and discussions at that time asked us to come back, have a look at bylaws in Alberta and come back with something. So we have draft regulations up for discussion tonight. I have that physical bylaw in my office. I didn't want to present the bylaw because of what I'm going to recommend later in this presentation, but we have the regulations ready to go. We also have more information for council than we did last month. And the areas of focus and the communities that we had to look at were St. Albert, Chestermere, Calgary, and Edmonton. Oh, I forgot to say, please interrupt me too any time during this presentation. Ask questions. Oh, not allowed? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. All right. I like it.
This was not an interruption.
Oh, okay. Right on. So, sorry about that. I like that because I can catch my breath, but that's okay. So in our research, Edmonton and Calgary, the big cities have user-friendly guidelines, and there's an asterisk beside that. St. Albert has a bylaw and an annual license for beekeepers. There's pros and cons to both of these styles, and the asterisk beside Edmonton and Calgary is that Calgary is going to be moving to a responsible animal control bylaw in the new year. I think it's going to be January or something like that. So they're going to have their guidelines, and then they're still going to have they're going to have an overarching responsible animal control bylaw that will involve bees. So on to our proposed recommendation. Staff are recommending a bylaw format regulations. We're recommending to be incorporated into a responsible animal control overarching bylaw. There's still going to be elements of these user-friendly guidelines within this bylaw. But we're thinking that the style of this regulation is going to be in bylaw format. We wanted to focus on safety and putting as much responsibility on the beekeeper as we could. We don't want things to be too onerous for beekeepers, and we don't want them to be too onerous for town staff. We don't want to create a process and a bunch of work for us if we don't need to do that. So we're on to the proposed regulations for the bylaw now. I'm just going to go through these one by one very briefly. I think they're page 30-something of your report. Page 34 of your report. Thank you, Councillor Sobel. So 2 hives per residential lot, and these must be in a backyard. Now you're probably thinking, the gut feeling is, Mr. Proctor, how come we haven't said 1 hive per lot? 2 hives seems like a lot, but there's a couple reasons why we've chosen to do 2. One of them is that there's a high winter kill of hives in Alberta. Like a lot of hives don't make it over the winter, so if you have 1 hive and it dies in the winter, you're kind of discouraged as a beekeeper. The second one, and the most important reason why we've recommended 2, is that a rookie beekeeper could have 1 hive in his backyard, do tremendously well that year. That hive would increase in population, and he would want to split it into 2 in order to prevent swarming and other nuisances that could come up. If he's prevented from splitting that hive, not being able to put 2 on his property, he could have 1 hive and not violate the bylaw, but then he'll swarm, or then he'll run into trouble elsewhere. So we're recommending 2 hives per lot, and they must be in the backyard. That's for residential properties. So beekeepers must submit a site plan showing 3-meter setbacks from all property lines. Hives must be 25 meters away from schools, playgrounds, and sports fields. Those are parcels containing those uses. They must be enclosed by a 1.5-meter fence/hedge if they're backing onto pedestrian walkway. The beekeeper also needs to provide proof that adjacent neighbors have been notified of the site plan. So we're pushing this work onto the beekeepers, or at least proposing in this bylaw to do that. So the beekeeper would have to inform us via email that, hey, I've talked to my neighbors on both sides. They rather than making that my job, to circulate to neighbors. I'm going to put that on them, or propose to. And then update all information. So beekeepers are going to need to update all information, say if someone moves. Again, proposed regulations, proof of success in an accepted beekeeping course. So we'd like some proof that these folks have taken some education, taken a course with hopefully most likely the Calgary District Beekeeping Association. And then proof of support and assistance of a mentor for rookie folks. And then again, your certificate with the province. There's some stuff about confirming that water will be provided at all times for these bees, confirmation about the kind of composition of the hive, that it meets the minimum specs with a bottom board and maximum 4 supers. And then this is, I think, the most important rule that we can do in a bylaw, and that is give the town the ability and the permission to go on property and remove hives if needed. And all costs of removing hives on these properties would be at the cost of the property owner. That's a very important rule. If we have nothing else other than this one, we would still be safe, I think, but this is very important to include. So this is a sample beekeeping process, complaint process in Calgary, which is right now. This might change in January with their new bylaw. I haven't seen the new responsible animal control bylaw in Calgary, but this is kind of what happens right now. And my source for this information is Liz Goldie with the Beekeepers Association. She's a director with that association in Calgary. She's been great. So if someone complains about bees to 311, that's the Calgary helpline. The information is then submitted to an email list of the Beekeeper Association folks. The association would make initial contact on most bee complaints, and there would be a resolution. A volunteer with that association would go make contact with the beekeeper who lives at that address, and either the number of hives would be reduced, hives would be moved, water added, etc., etc. And then they would involve city staff and or province if needed. A lot of this stuff is handled by that board of volunteers. Just another follow-up sample complaint, and this one was very interesting. So someone complains about a swarm, so this is when the bees leave the hive. Someone complains about a swarm to the city of Calgary. Again, the Beekeeper Association is notified via email, and these members respond immediately. It's almost a race within this association to see who can capture the swarm first. Like if someone would say, I'm 2 hours away, and then another member would email and say, I'm first, I'm only half an hour away, and they get there and handle the swarm. It's kind of like a fun thing for those folks to do for that. I found that very interesting, that it was a race to get to the swarm and be the first one to handle the issue. So again, city staff is not involved unless they're needed to. This is a self that they look after themselves. So I'm just wrapping up quickly here. I think I've got 2 more slides. Why a responsible animal control bylaw? So there's a couple reasons. Here's a few of the high-level ones that we're recommending a responsible animal control bylaw, and we're recommending bees to be included in that bylaw. And that is a one-stop shop for residents. If they want any information on animal bylaws, they can just go to the responsible animal bylaw. We don't need a standalone urban bee bylaw. Future amendments are made easy. We can team up with the enforcement folks. I try to take whatever chances I get to work with Trent and his team. They're fantastic. And then we won't overlap with other bylaw rules. Like I won't write separate enforcement rules for an urban beekeeping bylaw. We can have all of our enforcement regulations under one bylaw and be able to handle all complaints. We can set a standard set of rules for all animals in that bylaw. Those are just some reasons. I'm sure there's a couple more too. So this is my last slide, and I just want to say it's for council's discussion and recommendation tonight. I strongly believe that urban bee bylaw regulations should be included in the responsible animal bylaw, which is supposed to be coming, I think, fairly soon. Tracy and Trent have been working on that one. And we can come back to a soon council meeting in the near future with that bylaw. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Council. Thank you very much, Chuck, for that presentation. Brief but concise and educational. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks for the presentation, Chuck. Would allowing somebody to have bees, would they just would it be at the discretion of the town? Like let's say a neighbor had a problem with somebody having bees, would they be still allowed to have the bees?
Well, that's a good question. I didn't recommend a license in this thing, just because of the amount of work that it would take, but that could be one of the benefits of having a license. You could revoke it for someone with a series of infractions. But honestly, I think we're going to have very, very little trouble with beekeepers. It seems like the Calgary Association is more than willing to to help us. I've asked Liz Goldie for some local Strathmore contacts who are more than willing to be the point of contact for some of these complaints, and they'd offer all sorts of advice and that kind of thing. You know, to get back to your question, I think if we went with the way that I would be suggesting is as long as they meet the regulations, they'd be allowed to have hives. Maybe we can put a clause in there that says if you have more than X infractions, then no dice kind of thing, no, you know, not allowed. We can write something if council's interested to that effect. Thank you, Councilor Montgomery.
Oh, like, I'm just kind of thinking like, you know, if like you had a kid with, you know, like say severe allergies or something
Yeah.
like that, and your neighbor wants to have bees, you know, like, obviously that would make you kind of uncomfortable.
We hope that during that initial step where the beekeeper needs to notify his neighbors that that issue is resolved, you know, potential liability for that beekeeper would be high if he went ahead and did that despite having a neighbor next door. And from what I understand in Calgary, that the beekeepers are pretty good at following those regulations and those rules. But, you know, if that is an issue that you want us to have a look at, we can definitely put something in the bylaw to that effect. But
Do you know, like, if, and I'm not familiar with this at all, but let's say I had a dog and the dog attacked somebody, like, am I liable? And therefore, like, if somebody has bees and they attack somebody, would they be liable as well?
yeah, like it's all going to be under the, like Calgary District Bee Club says that every beekeeper should have general liability. It all falls on them. Insurance, They should have that insurance, and that's one of the first things they say. In fact, one of the first things they say at the meeting is don't do it, number one. The provincial guy comes in and says don't beekeep because it's a bunch of work and a bunch of trouble and stuff. But, you know, they do recommend general liability insurance for everybody.
Okay.
But then that being said, you know, a lot of the members on that association would say, hey, these honeybees are a lot less trouble than a dog. I know a lot of people think that way, but we should have sound regulations and rules in place regardless.
Okay, well, I do like the sound of this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson?
I just had a question for clarification on
Yes.
page 33. On the last paragraph, the third line, it says that future beekeepers are intended to supply relevant information to development services. Do you mean like the town's development services? Is that, I just didn't know who that referenced.
Here, sorry, Councillor Peterson, where is this
The
one?
last paragraph, third line.
Oh, I don't have my... Last paragraph, third line. Oh, yeah.
Just clarification on who are development services. Is that you?
Yeah, that's us. So we
Okay.
would be taking this in via email. We have access to all the legal
Right,
property
okay.
files and development services. It's kind of a natural fit for us to be the information takers on this one. We get an email from them saying, hey, here's our package for beekeeping application, whatever you want to call it, and then we would be the information keepers for that. We'd correspond with Trent and his team if an issue did come up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my next question, so Mark Jepson has
Yes.
made inquiries, and I know
Yes.
that you've worked with him, and he will inevitably be a great resource in the community. For someone who's in the town, but not in a yard, you will work with them around conditions that would be acceptable, but not necessarily following this process, because there would be no people in proximity.
Right, Councillor Peterson, this is within the boundary but not a residential property kind of thing, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could have separate rules for that stuff too. We can have, you know, at the discretion of the approving authority for town-owned lands, so that we would have some say in that, like how many hives could go on
We've
there.
talked about the pivot fields.
Yeah,
and-
pivot
and-
fields would be
and
great.
that-
We don't want to
yeah.
restrict that to one
Right.
hive or something.
So they
silly
could
like
work
that.
with you
They could work with
independently
us,
and-
yes, and yeah, it's an excellent question.
Thank
And then we
you.
could recommend also similar regulations. We want to be careful with commercial. You know, I think that potentially allowing it for commercial is a good idea, but you want to limit the number of hives for commercial. You know, a lot of these businesses, like a pizza place or a brewery, would like to have bees on the roof, which is great, but we want to avoid the situation where the use of that land is no longer a brewery, it's more like a beehive, bee place.
Right.
We want to limit the number of hives to one or two, so that's the principal use, is still the brewery and not a beekeeping operation.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Appreciate
Councillor
it.
Peterson.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a quick question, well, two quick questions, actually. When you say that, like, the hive does well, you don't want them to not have the option to split it.
Yeah.
Okay, say two hives do very well. How do they go about, I guess, I don't know if that's a problem or whatever, but what do they do then?
It's a great question, Councillor Corbeil. I think the rookie beekeepers
would be recommended from the town to just have one hive so they don't get themselves into that two hive issues. And if there is a two hive issue and the beekeeper does have issues, then he can reach out to this network of other beekeepers.
To take some.
And the demand for a thriving hive or half of a thriving hive is through the roof. There was an issue in Calgary where they had to get rid of, they were at the limit for two hives and they were both doing really well. And they had to list the hives on Kijiji and they were gone within an hour. Someone picked them up. They're
Thank you.
That's an excellent question. No, thank you.
And then my other one is about having so many infractions or whatever. Does your comment or having that clause that that the town can remove the hives from the property, would that not kind of address that issue? Having that included?
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe that would work. I think
under
having
there?
that, yeah.
Having that
would work.
flexibility to, I don't know, maybe we can go into a little bit more detail about it, but I really do like having that clause. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. One of the things, sorry, this is off topic, but one of the things, if we do get a favorable decision at a later council meeting, we should have our economic development team look into becoming a bee city or having that discussion with council. We might be able to get Preston Purteau's help. He would help us out, I think. Yeah. Anyways, that's up for you guys' this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two quick ones, Chuck.
Yeah.
Great. Like you come across as like an expert in this.
Oh, well, thanks, Councillor Sobel. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Our local expert, it's great. Chuck, bottom of page 33 again. And I'm reading that a physical license may be issued, but currently a fee is not proposed, although a fee may be necessary to cover costs. So are you contemplating going with an actual license?
Well, the reason why, thank you for the question, Councillor Sobel. The reason why I've mentioned a fee was because last month there was such a favorable response to the St. Albert bylaw. Like, we wanted to be sort of in that realm, and that's what they do. I have worries about a fee for a couple reasons. What service are we adding? What value are we adding to this? We don't want to add, in my opinion, a bunch of license requirements for these folks who want to get started up. But we have the option to, and I wanted to have that discussion tonight. We run into the situation where we take the fee to cover the cost of taking the fee, kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of work to set that thing up. I mean, we're more than willing to have that conversation with council, but I think that we should avoid a physical license.
Although having said that,
Yeah.
you're doing all the work.
Exactly.
And the work is all described as to, somebody has to actually check the application and make sure that all the parts of the regulation are covered prior to saying you can start. So, really, if you're that far apart, and the only reason I'm favoring an actual license at that point where all the boxes are checked is because I think for enforcement, which I hope never has to happen, but I think that might be easier in regards to enforcement in so much as you can then make the allegation of having an unlicensed, quote unquote, beehive. And once again, there's the amount of regulations you have and the requirements, I think is going to keep this trade to people who are extremely responsible. And unfortunately, with life, you always get people who are irresponsible. So I like the way this is set up. My second question is very simple. If you, as an expert in the in the beekeeping industry, what would you say the number one greatest benefit to beekeeping is? What's the top one?
That's a good question. Zen, it's kind of like almost, you get that kind of gardening feel, that kind of like shepherd feel almost. It's
back to nature.
Back to nature. This environmental connection, I think that would be, it's also a craft too. So you get that benefit up front of gardening and this environmental connection, and the bees are. The populations are in decline kind of around the world.
I was hoping that was going to be number one, but
yeah,
yeah,
that stuff. And then you get the benefit of, hey, you got all this stuff now. You got this honey, this wax. You can make these kind of holistic, organic, or whatever products from it, and give to friends, family, give to council members you're doing a presentation to, that kind of thing, right? I don't know. There's just so many. I think there's lots of benefits.
Thank you, Chuck. You did a great job on this file.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chuck, for this report. I wasn't here at the earlier one, but I did enjoy your honey. Thank you very much for the gift. My comment has to do along the lines of licensing. I am very much a proponent of licensing. I believe that it, just like responsible pet ownership, involves having a license. I also believe that responsible bee ownership should have a license. We display our fire permits up proudly when we receive them. We put dog tags on our dogs, and I'd like to see an emblem, sorry, couldn't say that properly, or some type of identification that this is certified by the town of Strathmore, and they have been, I don't know how to do it. Little bee tags, perhaps. I don't know. Is that what you were thinking? Little microchips on the bees? No, but I did contact St. Albert and tried to find out what the fee covered, their licensing fee, and I wasn't able to get a hold of them. Were you able to find out what their licensing fee, if it covers additional things?
Councillor Bauer, thanks for the question. I wasn't able to touch base with anybody at St. Albert either, but we can definitely look into that. It seems like there is some support for license for these things, or at least the discussion of. And to Trent West's benefit too, he also wanted to support a license as well for this. And we can bring this information back when we come to do our presentation on the responsible.
And I think $40 seems very reasonable.
Yes, like what I think our fire pit one for the year, is it $20 or for a fire pit kind of thing? So we could look at a little bit more money for the bees just because of that extra record keeping step and stuff. I don't know how many we're going to get in town. So this might, it's going to be an interesting year, the interesting season this year, and we'd be happy to come back and report these stats and everything too, and just monitor the system. We'd be happy to be involved. Thank you, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you.
It's $40 in St. Albert.
Oh, okay, thank you. So Chuck, this is coming back to us at a later meeting then?
I hate to put Director Tracy Simpson on the here, but when is the responsible animal kind of control bylaw coming? Is that in the works? December Committee of the Whole for discussion? Okay. Okay, great. So,
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for your presentation and information.
Thank you so much.
I would like to move that we come out of Committee of the Whole.
Yes, you're right. Thank you for that motion.
All right.
You've all heard the motion, all in favor? And Councillor Montgomery?
I would further like to move that we extend the meeting to 10:30.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. You've all heard the motion, all in favor? And then one more.
I will further move that we go back into Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. You've all heard the motion, all in favor? And we're all opposed? Okay. Well, we're back in Committee of the Whole. And Jennifer, please tell me. What are we on?
Your Worship, we're back to 6.1.
Okay, 6.1, bylaw number 18-26 to amend the council procedural bylaw, number 16-18, page 13.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, just like council is following along, the bylaw is not in your agenda package, but it was sent as an attachment to that. Administration is bringing forward this bylaw to coincide with policy 1101, which was passed by council at the November 17th regular council meeting. This bylaw, like I said, aligns with that policy. The major changes to the bylaw are in the terms of reference. The terms of reference, some of the committees have been redesignated to focus groups, and that includes the Downtown Vitalization Committee, the Tourism Development Committee, and the Recreation Facility Development Committee. The major change to those committees is that a timeline has been set for those committees to accomplish their mandate. Some of the other changes made to the policies include qualifications. So qualifications for chairs for the committees and for public members. Composition of the committees have also been changed on advisory committees, and that has changed because council members on advisory committees now are no longer voting members. So the numbers had to change so that voting would work for those committees. So where council members were taken off as voting members, we added that to the number of public members being added or being able to sit on those committees. One of the major changes to the terms of reference is on the Downtown Vitalization Committee. And there's been some changes to that group's functions. As council may remember, some of the functions of that committee were to approve design guidelines for signs and things like that. We've taken that away from the committee and tried to provide more of a focus. And I did this in consultation with Mr. Proctor. And as you can see in that terms of reference, the new functions of the committee are to research and provide recommendations on a number of matters for the downtown core. Is to provide focus to the committee so that they can come back and there's some measurable results that they can have and present to council that we can then work forward on. Other than that, like I said, so there is another change that I'm not too sure. It's just a housekeeping matter. The Canada 150 committee is now being taken off because obviously they've completed their mandate. And then the second committee that we're recommending on deleting is the Named Advisory Committee. That committee is no longer active, and it hasn't been in quite some time, is my understanding. So administration is recommending that council. What was that? The Names Advisory Committee. And those are really the major changes. This is our next step. Like I said, after this, we will be advertising for members, and then the nominations committee will meet to make recommendations to council on public appointments. Any questions?
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Councillor Sobel?
Very quick one. So what is replacing the Names Committee?
Your Worship, the council, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. So anywhere where there's like kind of like it refers to a member of another committee being required for another committee, I would presume that like a councillor wouldn't be able to do that. Like, so I'm on the sustainability and I wouldn't be able to be on the CIF. Is that correct?
Under the terms of reference, I do not believe that there are any council members appointed to the CIF.
Okay, well, just because it says they want a sustainability member or committee member on the CIF. And then I was going to ask, why is there a sustainability member on the CIF?
I believe the thinking with that, I'm just trying to think back. Just going to ask Tracy if she remembers.
Part of the grant application for CIF is a sustainability element to their events and or programs, and so we wanted a sustainability vote and focus. That was the theory at the time, but we're open to change.
Okay, no, I was just wondering that.
And I'm sorry, just to further answer your question, Councillor Montgomery, it would be up to the Sustainability Committee to decide who they want to represent them on this Community Investment Fund.
Just not a councillor.
Your Worship, the CIF technically is a advisory committee to council.
Okay. And then, so on the sustainability committee, there's a couple of members that are from outside of town, and I'm not sure if they're current business owners.
So that can be, so the reason that was put in there is under policy 1101, those were the basic requirements. However, council does have the ability to change that. So if we need to change that, we can.
Okay, yeah, like just for the sustainability, like that's the only one I know of where there's out of town members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson?
I just have a question for clarification. I know when we discussed the terms of reference for the Tourism Development Focus Group, we added one to the community business owners and operators, and we took out the Community Futures Wild Rose representative because we felt that there was opportunities through District Chamber of Commerce and through the business owners, and there was, we had taken that out. That was my understanding.
So just for clarification, the Community Futures Wild Rose representative
Yes,
is
that
out?
we had taken that off.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Councillor Peterson?
Just a huge amount of work, and very, very grateful.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Jen and your staff.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Councillor Cox?
Yeah, Jen, I'm the same as Councilor Montgomery on the Seniors Advisory. It says they must be a resident of the town of Strathmore, and I know of at least one that is not.
Question, Jennifer, procedural question? Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention too, that the nominations committee, those are not hard exactly and fast. The nominations committee will take those matters into consideration when making recommendations to council on who to appoint. So it's up to council at that point in time to take those recommendations from the nominations committee.
And Jennifer, I have a procedural question. It says here the recommendation is to give first, second, and third reading. Are you planning for us to come out of?
No, Your Worship. We can wait till next week. I will let
Perfect.
council know, however, that we will be advertising for public members only because our timeline is short for appointing.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Can you remind me again who's on the nomination committee?
The three of us.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think this brings us to item 6.2, council remuneration policy, page 15.
Thank you, Your Worship. I gave my agenda to Mr. Proctor, and he ran away with it, and I had all my notes on there, so hopefully I can cover everything. This report is coming back to council. The council struck a task force that being made up of Mayor Fuel and Councillor Montgomery to have a look at council's remuneration. And we're bringing forward a report to you tonight for an interim measure for council as our 2019 budget deliberations are happening, and we need to budget for council's remuneration. So the committee has discussed a number of different options and a number of matters that have come up from council for their remuneration. And at this time, we're recommending like I said, an interim measure of increasing council salaries to make up for the 15% tax-free amount that council was entitled to but will no longer benefit from in the new year. And we're also recommending that council implement or increase their amount that they are allowed to claim for per diems. Right now, council is limited to 4 days a year to claim for per diems. However, in the recommendations, we are requesting that council put in an amount instead of days. That amount effectively equals out to 15 full days of per diems. The other changes that we made in the policy were to take out kind of defined events that council can attend and broaden that a little bit. So instead of just saying, for instance, that council can claim per diems for AUMA or FCM conferences, we left it open to all council-related conferences, conventions, seminars, training sessions, and meetings, besides any regular scheduled council or committee meetings. And we also changed, because council has more than just a spring and fall workshop, they have training, things like that, we put just council workshops and retreats in there as well. The other recommendation that administration is making to council and that the committee discussed was the engagement of a third party to have a look at their remuneration, basically to have a look at what the base salary should include and what should be or could be claimed through per diems. So those are the two options, and I'll open this up for council's discussion.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Any comments or questions from council? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start it off. That is the one thing that when I was going through, I would like clear statements as to what's included in a salary. And not just that. I would like things more clear. I almost feel that there's like unwritten rules, that I, as a new councillor, wasn't aware of. Like, I understand, and I actually like that we aren't able to purchase liquor under our credit cards, but I don't see it stated. Little things that I just think should be cut and dry instead of, it's kind of clear like mud, to be honest, reading through it. It doesn't state actually in there that, not that I could find anyways, for mileage. I've worked for companies where you could do both mileage and claim your gas receipts, whereas you're only supposed to do one or the other, but it's not stated. I think that we just need to be a little bit more clear on, I guess, the limitations and abilities.
Thank you for that, Councillor Corbeil. And that's not in our remuneration expense policy? I couldn't find it. I'm not seeing anything on mileage or
Did not see it.
gas receipts.
And the only reason it came up is because.
Yeah, exactly. Jennifer?
The only place I can find it in the policy is in Schedule B, where it says that you can claim the rate set by Canada Revenue Agency for transportation.
But it doesn't state you can't do both.
So Jennifer, you're saying we follow the Canada Revenue policy?
We follow the rate for mileage set by
Right.
the Canada Revenue Agency.
Okay. And does that state that you can also do gas? Okay. It's one or the other? So how do we address that then? Do we want to spell that out clearly in our policy?
Your Worship, we can always add that to Schedule B with further clarification for that.
Okay. Councillor Sobel, and then Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the federal expenses, you can only do one or the other. I know we were never able to, we could only claim mileage. But I'm wondering if we're going to do that with Schedule B, make an amendment. I would really like to see something, and I was hoping we would be seeing that in regards to purchase of alcohol.
Your Worship, I can respond to that. I think that is a matter that perhaps belongs more in the Council Code of Conduct rather than in the remuneration policy.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. These are rules guiding our expenses, and a very simple rule saying that no expenses regarding personal use of alcohol and we could put it that way. And in regards to, I mean, there are going to be situations that council is going to, purchase alcohol in certain circumstances. But in regards to personal use, I'm not sure why we shouldn't have that as a no-no in the expense part of this.
Your Worship, we could do that. We have a couple options. We could put it directly in here, or we could put in the Code of Conduct and reference the Code of Conduct in this policy as well.
Either one would be good for me, but I'd like to see that in. I don't know if anybody else is interested.
I think that's a good idea. Be safer for all of us if it's spelled out. Any new councillors who come on board, it protects them. Did you say cannabis?
Yeah, we're fine with cannabis, right?
Jeez. Councillor Montgomery.
I just wanted to remind that's, we probably have to cover that now. Are you done?
Yeah.
Well, I only thought of that just now, actually, because of the conversation. But so where it says, under 6.4E, it says reasonable entertainment / hosting costs, example, meals, beverages for guests. I'm assuming beverages means alcohol, doesn't it? Okay, so we can, in fact, buy alcohol. Okay. Just as long as it's not for us.
Get the other's joke.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you buy it for me and I'll buy it for you. Well, and so like, I guess like, so obviously I've made, some suggestions, so what do you want me to do about those?
Your worship, as I mentioned, this is an interim measure.
Right.
We still have more work to do. The task force is not complete.
Okay.
However, this is coming so that council does not lose out on that 15% that they're going to lose at the end of this year.
Okay. When you say interim, like how interim?
Your worship, it'll depend on how quickly the task force completes their task.
Okay. Okay. Because like my only concern is just that some of us are incurring costs related to attending some of our work obligations, like such as committee meetings, and so like, the longer we kind of wait on this, it's just kind of costing more and more money. And so.
Councillor Councillor Corbeil, did you have a
I think-
response for Councillor?
I do. I think that we can, even if it's not in still, or whatever, we don't adopt it until, say, April, you can still go back to January and go from there on if that would help.
Jennifer.
Your worship, yes, that was, thank you, Councillor Corbeil. I was going to mention that council may want to consider implementing this policy retroactively till January 1st. Of 2018, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, I guess, well, I'll save all my recommendations for, sorry, I'll just shut up now.
Mr. Thackeray, did you want to weigh in?
No, I sent
Okay.
a note just saying I think it would be appropriate in some ways, given the complexity of it and giving sufficient time for the task force and a third-party review. I honestly don't think it's unreasonable to make it effective this year, because I think council's had an intention to be reasonable, and it's not a huge amount of money. But I think given the expectations that have changed a lot, I don't think it's unreasonable. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Jennifer, do you need this to come to the November 21st meeting?
Your worship, it will be coming to council to the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Worship. I had prepared a statement for today, just letting the public know that, I take this very seriously, that I didn't come into this position expecting to be paid over and above what I do work for. And I'm not going to read everything, but I do just want to say that there have been a conference that I attended for 4 days that I was not paid for at all, that I had the opportunity to work as a substitute teacher for that entire time. I was asked to book, I was booked for those days and declined because of the conference. And I was also asked to go up to Edmonton for a meeting, which I gladly accepted, for the opportunity to meet with the assistant to the Deputy Minister of Social Housing, to be with the mayor. And I believe that those are very valuable learning experiences. But there, it still stands that there are 5 days since October, or since I've been deputy mayor, that I've given up, and I've given freely, but I would like compensation. I would never expect anyone to take a job without being adequately compensated for that job, and just as I would never ask our administration to work for free. So I think our public respects that we're not going to go outside the guidelines that are set for us, but they need to be enforced and aligned with our guiding principles, and I believe that this document does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer, and I would agree that I would hate to see any of our councillors having to lose money in order to fulfill their jobs working as councillors for the town of Strathmore. So this policy will help deal with some of that as well, and it also helps councillors who do want to improve themselves and go to various conferences to try to learn more to help the town. So that's coming to the next meeting, and we move on to 6.7, the new municipal development plan, work plan update, page 39.
Your Worship, I thought I didn't have my microphone.
Oh.
But I'll speak to it when it comes up at council.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. I thought I was going blind.
Yeah, no, I have
Just press that one. Good evening, Council. I'll try and be as brief as possible. I know it's getting late, but I'm excited to be here today just to talk about the new MDP plan that we're going to be embarking on next year, and just to give you a brief summary of the 5 major steps. So we've decided to call this Prospering to 30K, the way forward. We're excited to embark on a plan that envisions the town growing to 30,000 people. We've done some infrastructure investments and updates to accommodate that population growth. Just a key summary of what the MDP really provides. It's a key strategic policy document that guides, as a town, how we are going to be implementing and envisioning our land use and also mobility as a town as we move forward. And this plan will really help to support the increased population and employment growth that we hope to see as a town. The current MDP was approved in 2014. This just gives us an opportunity to review the current the actual document and the vision, and to update that accordingly. We have an opportunity to expand some of the policy areas to be a little bit more progressive, I'd say, to look at things like Main Street policies, mixed use, some of the key areas we want to focus, increase in employment and also retail on, and some active uses, and to really create a sense of place, neighborhood activity centers, and really looking into some high-level urban design principles. We want to focus on this town and the different measures we wanted to actually beautify it, and to uphold some high standards about how we want to grow. It gives us an opportunity to review our existing communities. Where do we want to see change? What's it working, and what gives us opportunities to be better? We have a lot of land that's looking to be developed. We have a lot of approved subdivision areas that are not moving forward, and some that are coming forward. So again, how we can better complement the new areas with the existing pathways and land use networks. The goal, I think, as we move forward is really to create more complete communities. That's what we really heard from many developers and many builders, is that Strathmore is a very, I would say, segmented. The housing form and tenure doesn't give us opportunities to attract a diverse range of people to our town looking to go through a full housing spectrum that reflects on the employment opportunities and the business opportunities of our town. So we're really looking to diversify our town, starting with the land use, which we hope will then go into the demographics to support growth. So the 5 key steps we're looking at is, phase 1 is we're going to be working with a consultant to really look at a SWOT analysis of the town. We're calling it sort of a competitive analysis to really engage and understand where we are compared to other municipalities. Really, what are the key barriers and what are the key challenges we have, but it's also what are the major strengths we have as a town. And we do. We have a lot of great strengths. It's about trying to capitalize on that and trying to address the challenges. So that we expect will take us into March. From April to July, that's when we really want to have some great engagement with the community, council, stakeholders, citizens, businesses. And really part of that is to figure out what the vision is, which we will then move forward to create a growth and redevelopment framework, and then policies to support that framework. And we aim to have a new MDP adopted by the end of next year. So this first step, and I'll go through this really, really quickly, this for me is a really critical part of the process, is a SWOT analysis is used by many different towns and cities that I've done research on. Really what it does is help us to understand where we are. We need to understand where we are prior to knowing where we want to go. So if we're trying to build towards 30,000 people, what are the current strengths, opportunities, challenges and threats we have to do that? The last, I would say, 3 years has been a challenge for the town to grow. We've experienced about 40% less housing starts. I met with the reps group actually yesterday, 39% less sales the last year. And our population growth from the census from 2015 to 18 was 1.5%. So regardless of the great strengths we have, and I think we can all talk about the amazing amenities we have here and the complete communities, from a developer and a bank standpoint in terms of funding redevelopment projects or taking risk, those are not great numbers. And we've heard that loud and clear from many people to say, only when those numbers change will banks even start to listen to some of these developers and builders taking that risk. So we need to analyze how we can improve. What do we do better than anyone else? What are the great amenities we have? What areas can be improved? What do we need to take advantage of more? I moved from Calgary, and I have many friends who have lived in Calgary their whole lives, never been to Strathmore. So I think we have some great opportunities to build on things like the Stampede, Kinsman Park as a catalyst tool, to really get people even coming to Strathmore, experiencing what we have. And then only will people start to think of, hey, it's not that far. It's only an extra 25-minute drive, and look at all the things they have here. And if they've never been here to experience what the potential benefits could be, we're never going to get that growth. And what are some of the major obstacles we face? We have things like stormwater management, fire response times, lack of regional transit, which I think could really improve. So, there's some really critical nuts and bolts of what we need to move forward prior to any of the great policies and the visions that we hope to implement to actually be in place. So the second part, as I talked about, was just some really meaningful, in-depth engagement through some workshops, surveys, focus groups. I've been involved with some of the past really fun exercises where you sort of blow up a massive map of the town, bring in some Lego blocks with different colors, and you start to build those kind of maps, right? So the yellow blocks are for residential, red is for mixed use, and you kind of put 2 blocks together and you say, well, that's a 2-story building, and you put 3 blocks somewhere, which streets are we okay with having some height and some density, which areas are not. So some great ideas I think we've gone through, and just to really explore some key areas. So housing type and tenure, business growth, how we want to link our open spaces, and where we want to focus those main streets and the nodes. Technical reviews as part of this, as I said, to look at how we manage stormwater, our services, and really go through a comprehensive planning and engagement approach. This will really start to put together what the vision of the town is and where we want to grow, where we want to take advantage of, and how we want to link our existing amenities. So land use and transportation and street network and open space plans and a framework will start to come together that we'll come and work through council with to get your support. And these maps will really act as a blueprint to guide future development and to set expectations and set that comprehensive growth vision. And then we need to develop the policies to support these land use framework maps in terms of areas like density and mixed use targets, some urban design principles, and we talked earlier this evening about the transportation master plan. So, really be able to link some of the work and the implementation of the MDP with that, overlaying some of the public infrastructure investments as to where we as a town need to invest to be able to encourage and support growth. That's another thing that I've heard loud and clear sort of in my conversations is that it needs to be a partnered approach. certainly we can talk long and hard about the cost of development and who should bear that and the balance. But, there is a loud and clear that the town also needs to step up, so to speak, in terms of providing some of that and working with the developers. And it's a win-win, where we grow as a town, developers sell land to builders, they sell homes, we get increased population, we get tax dollars, we get people improving the business market segment here. So we really need to come to a consolidated approach with the real estate industry. And the final part is reporting back, going back to those we engaged to make them feel that the engagement was meaningful, not just a box we tick off, and come back to council in order to get the plan ratified. Part of it is looking at those implementation initiatives. You've recently approved an economic development officer. That's going to be really key. Part of that first phase, again, is really looking at how we can elevate the perception of Strathmore in the Calgary regional area, how we can begin to be competitive with other similar markets in terms of where people see us and the optics and the perception. So a lot of this work is going to help inform the economic development group person, and as I said, just working with the real estate industry in order to partner with that. That is a joint marketing approach on how we want to grow as a town in the incentive. So we're excited to move forward. It's an exciting opportunity for us. It's a clean slate. I'm really personally I'm excited to be able to have that influence on the town and to be able to impart some of the expertise. And we've got a great team as well through Development Services and Ryan's support as well that will be able to lead this and impart some real change on the town. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Very interesting, and I can sense your passion and energy for this. I think there's some good things ahead in this report and this plan. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, thank you very much, Justin. I agree with Mayor Fuel that this does paint an optimistic picture for us. One question I have is just to do with the CMRB growth plan and just how much we'll have to kind of work around that, and given that it's not going to be coming out for a couple of years, like how much should we be worried about what that will say?
Through the chair, the new MDP will have to be ratified or supported by that group. I mean, there are some density targets which we already have in our MDP. I mean, we do encourage 6 to 8 units per acre, which is in line with that. I think it's just, I don't see it as a huge concern. I think where we're moving towards is a more sustainable, comprehensive plan. I think we're doing a lot of due diligence to make sure that we are growing in a sustainable, strategic way. But it will have to go through them. But I don't see many challenges because we want to obviously align with them and their policies, and so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we have a choice in that matter. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson.
I am thrilled that this has come in-house. I think that's a fantastic decision. I'm very, very, very pleased about that. Councillor Corbeil and I were talking earlier about opportunities for this council to work with administration with regards to visioning. Do you see an opportunity for that to happen in a retreat format or something to do with that?
Through the chair, absolutely. Part of our first phase is to be able to report back to council. We've mentioned that in our scope of work with the consultant.
If we could dedicate time specifically to this
absolutely
important work, it would be just so wonderful.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing, with regards to the meetings that we had a year and a half ago with our realtors, one of the things that we promised them was to try to set up some measurable outcomes. So I know you talk about reporting back. I assume that that's part of that. that we would build some kind of measurable outcome into the overall process.
Through the chair, absolutely. I mean, that's part of phase 5, I'd say. We'd work with council and to really look at what some of those measurable impacts are. So some of my experience with the City of Calgary and areas they're looking to grow, they'd be measuring new housing starts, population increases, business increases. So, those are measurable stats that we obviously have in terms of we've put together these measures. We'll wait 3 to 5 years. Really, it's not going to change overnight.
And in a way, listening to your stats and something that we know, that we haven't really moved, and maybe that's a good thing because it's provided an impetus to do things differently because we've done things the same for a long time, and so to be able to look at creative new ways of doing business to draw people into a really unique community. I look forward to this, and I really appreciate your passion for it.
Through the chair. And, right now we've got, 2 new communities, I would say, Lakewood Meadows, and I know you've been invited to Coldwell Ranches, ASP as well, so we have 2 very, I would say, invested groups who are excited to develop in the town. I think the product and the market that they're trying to attract makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of affordability income gaps right now in some of my research. So, we're trying to be able to provide that spectrum of housing and to be able to make it affordable and attractive to anyone in the town. So if you're just coming out of university or wanting to come back to Strathmore, that there's some first-time buyers that are looking for condos. If you're looking to downsize as a senior. So that housing spectrum is a really important part of these new developments.
One of the things that I see I subscribe to a Future Trends in Urban Planning and Urban Principles periodical, and one of the things that they talk about for people your age and people with young families, that in that 30K process, especially with urban and peri-urban environments that have access to urban agriculture, that is what's going to draw your generation into community in greater numbers than anything else. And I find that a huge opportunity, and we are so well situated. We are better than anyone else in that environment, and I really look forward to this project, and I hope we can soon set up opportunity for council to join with you. Thank you.
Maui's a great time of year around March, April, so plan.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, and once again, Justin, thank you very much for your report.
You're welcome.
And best of luck as you move forward on this.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Which brings us to item 6.8, response to administrative inquiries. Ms. Sawatsky?
Thanks, Your Worship. Your Worship, there is a typed out report in front of you from Ms. Simpson. Would council like her to speak to it, or is that okay?
I think the report is okay. Does any councillor have any questions on any of the points in the report? Comments? Councillor Sobel?
Easy for you to say. My question is in regards to the second one, Civic Center. So, am I to understand that this has been done?
Correct.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's all I have.
The good news too was that it was a shared cost with the school.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the kudos to your team for quick action on the change tables in the men's rooms. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montgomery, and thank you, Tracy.
Sorry, I had one more.
Oh, Councillor Sobel.
Just getting my steps in.
Just in regards to, I just want to thank you and your group for the work that is being done and has been done on revitalizing the Citizens on Patrol group. That was one of my administrative inquiries some time ago. I see that it's on Facebook. I'm just so impressed with the manner in which this is moving ahead. And I would invite everyone out there in computer land that's watching this to remember when we do get into situations of crime in town and everyone gets frustrated with break-ins into vehicles, et cetera, this is your opportunity to get involved and really make a difference. So thank you to your group for getting this moving again. All we need now is some volunteers.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel, and again, Tracy, thank you. I think
You're
you're
welcome.
free now.
I just wanted to.
Oh, Councillor Montgomery.
Sorry. I just really hope we're not going to be buying this group AFRAC radios.
No, our plan is not to buy them. We're looking at shared utilization. Yes.
Perfect, thank you very much. That moves us on to item 7, urgent business.
Your worship.
Sorry.
Oh, Ryan?
Tracy, Ms. Simpson makes me look bad. I didn't type them out. But I'll burn through a few very quick responses. A few weeks ago, Councillor Sobel had asked about the possibility of lights on George Freeman Trail Bridge. So we got 2 quotes, one for sort of one light double-headed on a wooden pole for $5,000. Alternatively, $16,000 for 2 steel poles hanging over. That'll be a budget decision either way, so I'll throw that on the capital budget discussions in 2 weeks hence. With regards to the Badlands sign, the province still is being stubborn on this one, with regards to only wanting to approve a sign if it's attached to the main entry signs. Really being frustrated. So we'll be bringing this matter to council for a more fulsome discussion as what to do, and probably even what to do about Badlands going forward. I think that's a discussion that needs to be had. With regards to the trailer storage, a trailer storage was approved the outskirts of town, I gather about in 2016. Landscaping and trees were a requirement of the development permit that hasn't been fulfilled, so we've instructed staff to start to push on that enforcement of the development permit conditions. Exactly, landscaping security. And finally, I believe question about the sidewalk between 4th and 5th Avenues along 2nd Street, where there is a strange little gap. I could find, in talking to others, I could find no apparent reason why that gap is there. I think it was just an oversight. So we'll sort of throw that in the paving plan. I don't think it'll get done hurriedly, but next time we're paving in that area, we'll get that dealt with. I think that is all I had on my notes.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Which now brings us to urgent business 7.1 Bow Valley College. Last week they came with a request for funding or a confirmation of or a letter stating the funds could be or would be allocated to the project. This has to deal with the Entrepreneurial Center. We did refer it to our budget meetings, but our first budget meeting last night, we were not able to deal with it as an issue. And so the problem is the CARES grant application is being done by the end of this week. So Bow Valley College is looking for either approval or some confirmation regarding the funds approval. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm looking at this issue from a different perspective now. There is the learning side of the Bow Valley College, and then there's the entrepreneurial side of the Bow Valley College. It's become very apparent that there are some issues that still need to be resolved from the learning side. However, this particular CARES grant is specific in that it only targets the entrepreneur side of Bow Valley College. And I think by muddling the situation in our conversation previously, we've forgotten that this is a groundbreaking opportunity for Strathmore to be involved in entrepreneur activities that will further not only our community will be able to take what Airdrie has done in the forefront, apply that as well, and then have others come to our community to look at what we have offered our community residents and how that can expand throughout the province. So I would like to suggest that if we're able to go forward on making a decision on this CARES grant, that we do so remembering that having Bow Valley College in our community is such a big asset. There have been now hundreds of people that are going through that facility. It's anchored our co-op. It's brought people downtown. It's given people purpose and vision. And I believe that they can only offer us more through us supporting them through these grant applications. So that's, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. And I have a procedural question for Jen. Since time is of the essence and we want to focus our discussion strictly on what their needs might be, is this a situation where we would rise and report to put a motion on the floor to discuss and then have a vote on it? Because otherwise I'm just concerned we're just going to do a lot of general discussion and it could go to a motion anyway.
Your Worship, technically, if you're debating it in committee, if you discuss it now and you're going to make a decision, so you might as well rise and report.
Okay.
Should we take care of 7.2?
Would it make sense to come back to this then, do 7.2 first? Okay, thank you. Good point. Do we have to rise and report for 7.2 as well? What is 7.2, sorry? The seniors. MOU, seniors housing MOU. You're going to need a motion on that, aren't you?
No, we could do that on the 21st.
Okay.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Yes?
I think that there is a question, we discussed the Bow Valley College issue at our last open meeting, and a decision was made, regardless of whether the outcome wasn't satisfactory to them, a decision was made.
And you mean the decision to refer it to the budget meetings?
The decision to refer it to the budget meeting. And it was made after significant debate and discussion. And I just don't see that this council has a duty to act at this point on that. And so rising and reporting at this time, I think is out of order. I think that if you want to debate it inside, we can do that. And if at the end of that, there's a motion to rise and report, I guess, it's acceptable, but I don't think it should be considered a given.
I see your point, Councillor Peterson, because we did have full debate and discussion.
And
we
disclosure.
And it was out in public, and we referred it to the budget meetings.
And it was the second time they'd been here.
Yeah.
At the request of council.
Jennifer, I'm going to be looking to you for some guidance. Do we leave it as is then, or it has been brought forward? We made a decision to bring it forth to the budget meeting.
Your Worship, I guess the question is does council want to act on this matter tonight? And if you want to act on it, then you would rise and report. If you don't, you would discuss it in committee.
My question to that is how would we know if we want to?
You can discuss it in committee and then
okay.
You'll make the decision.
Councillor Cox?
Your Worship, is from your understanding from what they're asking for, is a letter of support to Bow Valley College all they require at this time?
Sorry, Your Worship, just had a moment of realization. Council did make a motion to refer the matter to the budget meeting. So if you're going to change that, you're going to have to amend your motion.
Okay.
But what I'm...
To answer your question, they're looking for confirmation of minutes that would show that we're going to approve these funds, or a letter stating the funds will be allocated to the project.
So they are looking for money. Okay.
It's not just a letter of support, they're looking for confirmation.
Thank you for clarification, Your Worship.
You're welcome. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
I think that the debate will continue in our budget meetings if we don't make a decision now. So I would like to propose that I make an amendment to the motion and that we try and, no, is that not? No, okay. then I don't know what to do. I'm sorry.
You have to come out of.
We would just have to come out of committee of the
have to
whole,
come out.
and
Then
then
you can make that amendment.
you can make a motion to amend.
Can I do that? Or is that out of order?
This is a tough one. No.
Yeah. Your worship, you can come out of committee, and then so procedure, you would rescind that motion and make a new motion.
If it's voted on that way. So would you like to make a motion to come out of committee of the whole then?
Point of order.
Point of order?
Point of order. Your worship, can I ask administration? If we come out of committee, rescind a motion, does she not have to have approval, like we have to do all 3 readings at this, like?
It's not a bylaw.
No, so we just have to approve, does it have to be unanimous?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So just to double check, we can come out of
Yeah.
committee of the whole?
So it would be 2/3 vote to rescind the motion.
Okay.
And the person moving the motion would have to be a person who was on the prevailing side. So I think it was carried unanimously. No? Okay, we're going to have a look at that.
4 and 2.
You could do it.
5 and 2.
It was 5 and 2.
4 and 2 because Bob was.
Bob was away. No? It was 5 to 2. 5 to 2, yeah. Oh, you're consulting? For clarification, Mr. Thackeray, for clarification on the other one, as far as if we're going to come out of committee of the whole to deal with 2 items, the housing one, as far as a memorandum of understanding is needed by tomorrow, is that correct? Okay, so we do have to come out of, regardless, we have to come out of committee of the whole. So Deputy Mayor Bauer,
I move to come out of committee of the whole.
you've all heard the motion, all in favor? So now we're in the public portion of the meeting. Do you want to deal with the seniors housing one? Does that make sense, Councillor Peterson?
I'd move, Your Worship, that we accept the memorandum of understanding to have the members of, appointed members of council take the memorandum of understanding regarding does it have a note on it? Taking the memorandum of understanding that would, between County of Wheatland, Town of Standard, Village of Standard, Village of Rockeford, and Hazar, Town of Strathmore, Wheatland Housing Management Body, a memorandum of understanding that would set forth the terms and understandings between the partners to improve the availability of housing for seniors in the region, and that members of appointed to the committee bring this to the Wheatland Housing Management Board November 15th. Sorry, Jennifer.
Were you able to get?
Can you recite that back to us, please?
Yes. I just read off the front page.
You probably could.
So the motion is on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion concerning the seniors housing? Hearing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. And that brings us to the Bow Valley College.
I move to rescind, or no?
So, Your Worship, 3 motions. The first will be to rise and report. The second will be to rescind resolution 404.11.10. And then the third would be your new motion. 11.18.
So we've come out of committee in the whole, so I'm looking for a motion to rise and report. Do you need a motion to rise and report, or you just rise and report?
We just made a motion.
We just made a motion there? Okay. Thank you. You've all, do we have the, does anyone need to hear the motion again?
Which one?
Horizon report?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. All in favor? Now, we need to have a motion regarding the original resolution to rescind if you're going to see that.
Can I ask a point of order?
Sure.
Can you
I wouldn't
repeat
ask
the
me.
motion to rescind?
I don't,
I don't remember. It's been so long. I'm just looking it up.
Your worship.
Councillor Cox.
A motion to rescind is more of a challenge. The chair restates the motion to rescind and asks for debate. During debate, any member may propose amendments and changes. So you can debate it.
Okay, so we're in need of a motion to deal with rescinding resolution 4404.11.18.
Point of order here.
Councillor Cox.
Can I make a motion that we extend the meeting till 11 o'clock?
You can't.
We're done? Oh,
At 10:30?
hurry up.
Deputy Mayor Bauer.
I move to rescind Resolution 404.11.18.
And you've all heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peterson?
So, Your Worship, I speak against this motion. I think that a motion to rescind something that we discussed at 2 previous meetings at great length is not wise. I think it's also extremely unwise to make budget decisions in this amount based on pressure from an organization to do so. And so in rescinding a motion where we've had a lot of opportunity, we had the date of the, I had it sitting in front of me. I knew the date that the proposal was due. The people sitting in our audience also knew. So bringing a motion to rescind forward at this time, to me, does not seem rational. It doesn't seem reasonable, and it doesn't seem to be in the best interest of the people we serve when we bring budget forward for discussion. And I would really speak against it. I don't think that we have the capacity to move forward in any kind of reasonable way on this motion.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. Any other comments? I tend to agree with Councillor Peterson in that we did have it come to us twice. We discussed it, we referred to the budget meeting, and I do have concerns about making a decision based on contact from the group stating that they have a deadline coming or looming for a grant application. It does put us in a situation where we're in a reactive position as opposed to planning it all out. So I can see that definitely. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also agree. I think that being that they had a deadline, they knew their deadline, maybe they could have come to us a little bit sooner, but I also think that they have come twice and that we still have questions makes me feel a little uneasy about passing it without the information that we were requested.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cox. Are there any other comments or concerns? This has been a contentious issue and a very confusing one, and I apologize if the 5 people at home are still watching and you're as confused as we are. We are trying to do the right thing, but we have to be cognizant and aware of money that we spend and budget money that is being discussed. But we also recognize that this group that we're discussing, Bow Valley College, has much to bring to our community. So that's why this decision has been such a difficult one. We have no more discussion on it, as I can tell, and we have a motion on the floor to rescind that earlier motion regarding Resolution 4404.11.18. So you've heard that motion. All in favor of the motion? We have 1 in favor. All opposed? We have 6 opposed and 1 in favor, so the motion is defeated. So it will stay at the budget meeting level discussion, and we'll convey that information to Bow Valley College, which brings us very close to the end of the meeting. We're back out, we're out of committee of the whole, so we're in the public meeting. Mr. Thackeray?
Could I make a recommendation through the chair, your worship? We still have a number of issues to talk about regarding the item that was before us earlier, and I would propose that if council's amenable to refer that item back to either committee or to a subsequent council meeting.
Yes, that's horrible.
It's been a real education for me.
Oh, yeah, me too. Councillor Montgomery?
Do you need a motion to table that then?
You're in council, so if you motion to postpone to another meeting, it's just a matter of which meeting you would like to postpone it to.
And I have a question in that regard.
Councillor Sobel?
So, are we under the gun here, Mike?
No, we're not. I don't see any problem with coming back. We've got an item on council's agenda that I'll have to speak to next week, so I'm happy to carry on the discussion next week.
Oh, sounds good.
Next
week?
You're very kind.
Councillor Montgomery?
I will move that we postpone agenda item 8.3 to next week's council meeting.
We'll take care of that. Mr. Thackeray?
Sorry, I just wanted to say one quick thing after you've made your motion. Sorry, right? It's too late. If I may, your worship, I'd just like to thank Ryan, Mike, Tracy, Lisa, Jen, Dan, Ethan, Chuck, Marcy, Frida, Justin, Craig, Charles. Everybody's been doing a really, really good job. I'm really grateful and humbled to work with these people, and we got great people, and I'm just so pleased that you're getting good information, and thank you for that. And I'm really proud of the staff here, so.
We are too.
Thank you for that. We have a motion on the floor then. All in favor? And
Move to adjourn, Your Worship.
we have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? And the meeting is adjourned at 10:30.
Yes.